Hello again, wherever you are in the world. This is day 3 of the inaugural Hammer Series. I'm Dan Lloyd. Alongside me, we have Mr. Tom Last, who many of you will be familiar with. And in the corner today, looking at social media comments, we have Social John, otherwise known as John Cannings. So make sure you keep busy in the comment section below the video, wherever you are watching it. Or if you want to contact us via Twitter, the handle is at GCN Tweet, and we'll be keeping an eye on that throughout today's chase. The chase is the final stage out of 3 days here at the inaugural Hammer Series, and this is where we will crown our overall winners. There will be 2 sets of teams starting in a team time trial formation with small gaps between each one. First off from the last group will be Team Sky, who are the overall leaders after the first 2 events, that being the climb on Friday and yesterday's sprint. They will then be followed by Team Sunweb at 32 seconds, which is contradictory to what we saw on our screens yesterday, but we'll go through the reasons for that in a few moments' time. First up though, we should probably have a look at what they're dealing with on the team time trial course today for the chase. It's basically a verification, or a variation should I say, on yesterday's sprint course. So they're doing 3 laps of a 14.9 kilometre circuit, which will give them a total distance of 45.7 kilometres. So expect that to take them in the region of 50 minutes. Each team will start with 5 riders, and in the second event today out of 2, the first team that crosses the line with their 4th rider will win the Hammer Series overall. However, there is still the possibility to win day 3 simply by being the fastest team to cover that 45.7 kilometres. It's all going to kick off with Group 2, which will start at 14:50 or 2:50 p.m. Local time in Europe. So that is just 10 minutes or so from now. The last 8 riders from the overall of the first 2 stages will be in that group, and then closely followed just after that stage is finished by Group 2, which will see the winner crowned of the race. As I said, Team Sky starting off 32 seconds in front of Sunweb. Nippo Vini Fantini, an amazing ride by them over the first 2 days, sees them starting in 3rd place, 1 minute behind Team Sky. We've then got Lotto Soudal, Movistar in 5th, Cannondale Drapac in 5th, 6th, sorry, should I say, Orica Scott in 7th, and last off the ramp on the last team time trial, the chase today, will be Team Lotto NL Jumbo, who will start a full 2 minutes and 16 seconds behind Team Sky on the day. Let's have a look back yesterday though, Lasty. We've got some more data coming up for you from Velon in a few moments' time. Possibly the numbers not quite as impressive as the climb on day 1, but nonetheless, given that yesterday was flat, we still saw some huge power outputs from some of the riders.
Yeah, incredible speeds as well done.
Yeah, I think on one of the laps, Jasper Stuyven averaged in the region of 54 kilometres per hour, and you can see that on your screen right now. 448 watts he averaged last week for over 9 minutes, and he had to sprint at the end of that too. Those figures really are quite phenomenal on a flat course.
Yeah, just incredible stuff. It was just flat out. Eyeballs out racing.
And I think that's what we've noticed, hasn't it, from the reaction of the riders in interviews and on social media. Very short, very intense racing, which starts from kilometre 0. As soon as the flag drops, the best riders in the race are having to show their hand straight away, and the kind of powers that we've seen and the data we've been analysing since then really has been something quite spectacular indeed. In fact, Philippe Gilbert, he Instagrammed the other day a picture from the opening few kilometres of the first climbing stage, and it was all split to pieces after just a couple of Ks, and it just goes to show how hard that was. Incidentally, the reversal of the first 2 teams off in the second part of today's stage, Sunweb going off 2nd and Team Sky in 1st place on that stage. That is down to the fact that yesterday, that crash which involved Caleb Ewan, which took him out of the race, it also took out Raymond Sinkeldam, who was the rider from Team Sunweb, who had picked up some points earlier on. The fact that he didn't finish meant that those points didn't count, and so on count back after that fact, it meant that Team Sky had won on aggregate over the first 2 days. Probably my time now to make a huge apology, because I've misunderstood the rules about the first 2 stages and therefore the aggregate point system over the course of those first 2 days. As opposed to adding up the total points from the climb and the sprint, it's simply an aggregate of the position that each team finishes on those 2 days. So not Movistar at the top because they picked up so many points on day 1, but rather Team Sky because they had the lowest aggregate placing over the first 2 days. Right, we should have a look at Daniel Oss's tweet, I think, just now. He also put it up on Instagram. He was also one of the riders that was involved in the crash involving Caleb Ewan and Raymond Sinkeldam. And there you can see on your screen right now, it looks, Lusty, as though he had a chain ring to his shin. That looks quite nasty, doesn't it?
That looks very, very good. You can actually see the different teeth marks in there.
Yeah.
Do you reckon it was a 54 or a 53?
Well, I was surprised that the big chain ring didn't have a chain around it at that point.
That's a good point.
And that therefore the chain ring teeth were exposed.
It'd be difficult to get your shin on it in a chain ring, you'd think, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Anyway, we have got the final start list for today. As ever, from the initial selection of 7 riders per team, they have selected 5 for today's team time trial chase. One rider who hasn't competed at either of the first 2 days of racing but will be competing today in the chase is young British rider Owain Doull, who's an Olympic champion in the pursuit. So he's going to come into this very, very freshly indeed.
Yeah, he was on Instagram yesterday on the flight over, wasn't he? So they have just flown him in for today's stage.
And incidentally, one rider who they have flown out is Ian Boswell, who we saw a couple of times on our screen yesterday during the sprint. He actually started the Criterium de Dauphiné today, so it's been quite an intense couple of days for the American rider Ian Boswell. So good luck to him over in France today. So the 5 riders that Team Sky will start with, we have something up on the screens for you fairly shortly. There they are. John Dibben, who we saw racing yesterday. Owain Doull, who hasn't raced on the last 2 stages. Theo Gegenhardt, who's been very much at the forefront on both of the days. And then a couple of sprinters, Danny Van Poppel and Elliot Viviani. None of them particularly specialist out of those last 3 in the time trialling discipline, but given that this is a fairly flat course, and as I said, a variation on the sprint course that we saw yesterday, I think that they are going to be very, very hard to catch from the teams which come behind them. Teams some about 32 seconds behind them on the start ramp.
Yeah, certainly when you think of Dibben and Doull's team pursuit experience on the track as well, it's really going to play on such a fast team time trial course.
Yeah, and we often see that sprinters are good in the team time trial event because it is not a steady power throughout. When you come to the front of a team time trial, you're going into the red effectively and you're trying to recover at still quite a high power when you are on the back of the other riders in your team. 5-man teams is going to be very different to what we see at the Tour de France and the other Grand Tours, where you normally have 9 riders per team on the start line and therefore in the team time trials. So there's going to be far less opportunity to rest on the wheels, and you have to do a lot more work on the front, so that could play a big factor in the outcome of today. If you want a full explanation of what is involved in the chase today, our very own Matt Stevens has been doing some explainers over the last couple of days, and he sets out to explain what the riders and the teams will be going for today.
The Hammer Chase. The final Hammer Chase uses an extended version of the course used for the Hammer Sprint at 14.9 kilometres long, which the teams will cover 3 times, giving a total distance of 45.7 kilometres. This will be the battleground for Sunday's deciding race. The teams will ride time trial bikes and have to stay in team formation, with no drafting allowed should they catch each other. Starting positions will be determined by the leaderboard after the first 2 days. A pulsating, thrilling pursuit will then ensue, where the teams chase each other towards the finish line. Whichever team crosses it first will win the first ever Hammer race. Expect fireworks.
Interesting. So you were explaining to me earlier that although most of the teams, Bahrain Merida are an exception, we should maybe get onto that later, are going to be racing on their full team time trial setups, they're actually not using aero helmets.
No, apparently they are not allowed to use aerodynamic time trial helmets on today's chase stage, purely for safety reasons. So of course an aero helmet, if you've ever worn one, it does take away somewhat the amount that you can hear out on the road, and given that teams can catch each other out on the road from a purely safety perspective, they've decided not to allow the teams to use time trial helmets. And that incidentally is also the reason why we don't have all 16 teams going out on the road at the same time. 2 blocks of 8, that is purely down to safety reasons. So it's not long now before we will see the first team off for the day, 4 minutes in fact. That team is going to be Trek Segafredo, because despite doing incredibly well yesterday, they ended up on the same aggregate position as 3 teams, or they were part of 3 teams on the same aggregate position. The other being Orica Scott and Team Lotto NL Jumbo. At that point it goes back to a count back on actual points gained. Orica Scott and Team Lotto NL Jumbo finishing with more points points over the 2 days than Trek Segafredo. So unfortunately for Trek, they are in the lower half of the teams, which means they are heading off Group 2, which will start in 3 minutes' time. Trek Segafredo today are also going to be quite hard to catch for the teams which come after them. If we look down their starting 5 for the day, they've got Matthias Brendle, who's a very good time trialist. He's a former hour record holder and a recent winner of the time trial stage over at the Tour of Belgium. Gregory Daniel, who is the national champion of the USA on the road. Young Portuguese rider Ruben Guerreiro is also riding for them. Jasper Stuyven, he could be key. We saw how much power he put out on a couple of the laps yesterday. No doubt he will be prolific on the front of this team today. And finally, the very experienced Dutchman Boy van Poppel will finalise their lineup, number 107. So just a couple of minutes now until we will see them on the start ramp here in Limburg.
Definitely, there's some, for me, Dan, there's some huge surprises in this second group. I mean, definitely I would have expected Trek Segafredo, Quickstep and BMC.
Yeah.
Or actually, had it been a team time trial format from the start, all those 3 teams would have been in the top 7 or 8 there.
Yeah, you're completely right there last year. I don't think anybody would have predicted that after the first 2 days we'd see Trek Segafredo, Quickstep Floors and BMC Racing in the second group, having finished in the last 8 on the overall standings after the first 2 days. Here are Trek Segafredo then lining up. What I'm going to be interested to see, Lasty, is how quickly they manage to get the riders up to the start line next, because although there's 39 seconds between Trek Segafredo, who start off first, and Quickstep Floors, the Belgian squad, who are second off the start line today. If we look a little bit further down, between 4th and 5th, for example, there's only 15 seconds between Bahrain Merida, who, as Lastly pointed out, will be on normal road bikes we are expecting today, due to the fact that all of their warp time trial bikes from Merida got stolen before the race started. There's only 15 seconds between them and Team Roompot in 5th, and then a further 12 seconds between the Dutch squad and Team UAE Emirates in 6th place. So that's not long to get yourself to the start line, get your helper to hold you up so that you can clip in. We could see some kind of Matt Stevens situations of riders desperately trying to clip in on the first few 100 metres.
Definitely. Well, something that's interested me already is that although the riders they're wearing their normal helmets, they're not wearing the most aero versions of those helmets.
No, that is interesting, isn't it? So
there's no specialised evades or anything.
No,
they're on the Quickstep team.
As we were just talking about a few moments ago, they're not allowed to use the full time trial aero helmets, which you would normally see them using at individual time trials or indeed on team time trials at all of the stage races throughout the world in professional cycling each year. But most teams will have an option of an aero road helmet, so something like the Kask Infinity, which is what we use here at GCN. But that doesn't look to be the case today. They're going with standard vented helmets by the looks of things.
Yeah, very strange. I think it's going to be very interesting to see just how closely these teams have to set off, especially when you think there's only 16 seconds between teams 2 and 3.
Well, let's remind you, this is the second group of 2 today, so none of these teams have a possibility of winning the overall in this inaugural Hammer Series here in Limburg, but what they do have the opportunity of doing is winning the day, day 3. So the fastest time set on the 45.7 kilometre team time trial chase today will be deemed winners of stage 3, that being the chase. However, only the riders and teams in the second group, which starts on the road, will be able to win the overall series for the first time ever. A few moments time then we will see Trek Segafredo getting going, 39 seconds after them. In fact, they're off now. 39 seconds after Trek Segafredo, we will see Quickstep Floors coming off the start line in hot pursuit of Trek Segafredo. Do you think, lastly, that they will change tactics in any way, shape or form, as opposed to just going as fast as you can over the course of the 45.7 kilometres, or will they try to start a little bit faster and make sure that that gap doesn't close between themselves and the next teams on the road?
Well, it's a really interesting dynamic, isn't it? Because while they can't draft, they've definitely got, Trek don't, but Quickstep and the other teams have got that team ahead of them to chase. So it's going to be really difficult once they will be in sight on certain sections of the course, and once they're in sight, it's going to be difficult not to go all out to catch them, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's just a cyclist impulse.
And like you said, it could well mean that a team goes into the red in order to make that catch, even though, as you said, you then get no recovery because you can't draft the next team. There you go, then BMC next off the start ramp. They are 16 seconds only behind Quick-Step Floors. And those two teams, of course, have had a huge amount of competition in the World Championships team time trial over the last couple of years. Not necessarily exactly the same riders within that squad, but they've taken quite a calm start. We're looking at Quinziato and his compatriot there, Danielos, from the start line. As I said, this is the same course in effect to yesterday's sprint with a little deviation which extends it by a couple of kilometres. But that does mean they will be dealing with those same corners in the opening part as they were yesterday. There were Team Bahrain Merida, who started just 23 seconds behind BMC Racing. Really does come thick and fast, doesn't it? But you would have noticed they were on their road bikes with some clip-on aero bars, because unfortunately for them, the Bahrain squad did have all of their Warp time trial bikes stolen from their team truck just one day before this series started.
I think, Dan, this is a good opportunity to actually maybe clear up Alistair Wood's comment on YouTube, who's asking just about the time intervals that they're setting off at.
Yes, there are base time intervals between the teams. So between the first and the second teams from each group, the base time is 30 seconds. Then it's 25 from second to third, 20 from third to fourth, 15 from fourth to fifth, and in fact 15 from that point onwards within the group. But added to the base times, you then have to factor in the differences in bonus seconds achieved by two consecutive teams. So if we look at the teams that are coming off in the second group, as Kakarurao set off for their chase team time trial. Team Sky, they picked up a total of 18 bonus seconds, whilst Team Sunweb only picked up 16 seconds. So you have the base 30-second gap plus the difference of 2 seconds. That gives the 32-second difference as they come off the start ramp. Nippo Vini Fantini's base time to Team Sky is 55 seconds. However, they
got a track rider off the back.
Oh, already. 102. That
stinging.
is Gregory Daniel, the national champion of the US on the road. But they've obviously started pretty hard, the Trek Segafredo squad. And that is something that you always need to factor into a team time. Possibly less when there are 5 riders than when there are 9 on the road. But if you come out of a corner, lastly, and you're sprinting at the front whilst the last rider in your team is still going into the corner, or at least through it, then he's going to find it very hard to keep up on the exit of the corner.
It's like the elastic band effect, isn't it? And there's only so many times you can stretch it before it's going to snap there. What I'm interested to see, Dan, this course is relatively technical, it's very fast, and when the catches do happen, because I think it's when rather than if, are the teams going to have to ride in parallel because there's no drafting allowed? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, it could prove reasonably problematic, couldn't it, if they catch but don't pass another team coming into a set of corners, which we've got a lot of just before and just after the finish line each lap. So 3 laps of 14.7 kilometres that they'll be riding in the chase today. So as you point out, if they are kind of next to each other, even just with 2 teams next to each other, that's going to be an interesting go into the corners, isn't it?
Because there aren't so many sections where a team's going to be going significantly faster than another one and just drag straight past them, are there? It's quite twisty, there's a few changes of pace, and so, yeah, I'm not sure how. Yeah, I think they're just going to have to ride in parallel.
Yeah, you would imagine that the differences between the teams is not going to be huge either. So it's not as though once one team catches another, they're going to storm past them and leave them in their dust. They could well be neck and neck for quite some time before any kind of hierarchy is made between the two of them. Just to remind you, Trek Segafredo, who you can see on there right now, there's some live data coming from Velon. That is the Austrian rider, Matthias Brendley. That kind of answers one of the questions that we've had coming in on YouTube. Casper Vestergaard, how fast do you think they will be riding? Well, it's been static at around 49 kilometres per hour. My guess would be that they would average in the region of around 52 kilometres per hour on the type of course that they've got today. Not too dissimilar, in fact, to a couple of the laps that they had on yesterday's sprint stage.
Yeah, Ruben Guerrero, Brendley's teammate, is not particularly enjoying this one. He's been off the back by a couple of lengths a few times already. Yeah,
well, it's a difficult discipline to get right, the team time trial, and I have no doubt that if teams were selecting their riders for the World Championships and they had their entire team to select from, it probably wouldn't be the same 5 riders that they've got here on the start line of the chase today. So looking down Trek Segafredo, as we've already said, Brendley is a fantastic individual time trial rider. He will be very strong on the flat. We saw him up the road on a couple of occasions yesterday in breakaways. Jasper Stuyven too. And the problem is that if you've got two riders or just one rider who is a lot stronger than the others in this particular discipline, that they ramp the speed up a little bit too much and put some of their teammates too far into the red and they struggle to carry on. Ideally in a team time trial, what you want to do is if you've got a very strong rider, they don't increase the speed when they come to the front, they just hold that speed for far longer and give the others a bit more rest behind. But if they do increase the speed, that can be where the gaps start to occur.
Yeah, we have that problem with Matt actually, don't we? Sometimes we find we're stretching it a bit too much on shoots.
Yeah.
So looking at this actually, I'm looking at the numbers that the quick-step riders have pinned on, and some of them look really flat and smooth, Dan, and some of them look really crinkled. So is there an aerodynamic way to pin on a number for a time trial?
I would imagine that there would be, and in the UK, of course, time trials are a massive part of cycling. Here's BMC, incidentally. They started, yeah, they would have had them in sight from the start, though, lastly, wouldn't they? Because they only started 16 seconds behind Quick-Step Floors. But that surely has got to motivate you to see that second place is kind of in front of you.
At what distance is there an aerodynamic advantage? So you see Quick-Step Floors have got a motorbike rider behind them. They've got a team car to the side, which... So, you know, once BMC are within a certain distance of Quick-Step Floors, they are going to start to get, even if it's a tiny, tiny benefit, there is a benefit to that, right?
Yeah, there must be. I'm not sure. It's something that we are planning on doing at some point in the future, finding out where motor vehicles do have an impact on slipstreaming, because you don't have to be right behind a motorbike or right behind a vehicle for it to impact the speed that you can go for a certain power. So it will be interesting to see at what point the commissaires decide to pull the team car out, given that that gap, as we saw on the screens a few moments ago, between Quick-Step Floors, who started second, and BMC Racing, who started third out of this group, was down to just 10 seconds. And in fact, that graphic also showed us that Quick-Step Floors had narrowed the gap that they started behind Trek Segafredo by a full 6 seconds. So we could conceivably see the first three teams on the road riding next to each other, which is going to be very different to what we ever see normally in a team time trial, because of course in the Grand Tours they have a full 5 minutes between each team and there's nigh on no chance of them catching each other. Here we go.
First catch.
Bahrain Merida team car has been pulled to one side because the Roompot Nederlandse team, who started just 15 seconds behind them, are about to make the catch. Quite not particularly surprising, is it, Lars, given that the Bahrain Merida squad are not on their time trial bikes, but nevertheless, the fact that we've got some bad weather here as well is going to mean that they're going to take things very, very steadily around the corners, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, here we go. Well, I guess Bahrain Merida should pull. Yeah, they pulled out a few seconds there, being on their road bikes. That was the corner where we saw a big crash yesterday. What about nutrition for something like this? So I'm going to ask you a question over another catch, but how would a pro team and how do riders fuel during a team time trial?
They will have bottles on their bikes, but all of the nutrition from a calorific point of view will have been taken care of by all the riders last night after the sprint stage and this morning as well before the start of the chase. So they won't be needing to take on any gels really over the course of 50 minutes, but they will have bottles on the bikes. But as much from a hydration point of view, it's more just keeping your mouth from going too dry, as you very well know, Lasty. But it looks like another catch is going to be made here between the BMC squad and Quick-Step, because they very much have them in their sights. And on this long straight road, you can also see Trek Segafredo's team vehicle in the distance, the team that started off first out of this Group 2.
So, you know, Holland's infamous for having crosswinds and stuff like that. We can see the BMC riders just fanning across the road there. So I'm actually wondering how they're going to get round Quick-Step.
It's going to be difficult, isn't it? Because, you know, when you think that BMC started 16 seconds behind Quick-Step, they've been on the road now for, what, 10 minutes already? And they've only closed that by 8 seconds. So, as I said before, it's not as though they're going to be steaming past them at a 5 kilometres per hour extra. The difference in speed is probably less than 1 kilometre per hour. And that's going to make getting alongside them and actually passing the other team very difficult indeed.
So we've got Stefan Kung's numbers on screen now. He's doing 55 kilometres an hour. They're tearing along. 548 watts, I'm guessing he must be at the front. He's running quite a high cadence, Dan, 109 RPM. Will the cadence be decided by the riders on an individual basis, or do you think they'll shoot for a set cadence during this one?
Well, each rider generally has their own cadence which they are most happy at, and we at GCN always tend to say that your preferred cadence is generally the best one for you. So we see some pro riders. Oh, look at the Quick-Step squad. They are all separated from their leading rider at the moment, and then we've got another team just behind them. The fact that the ground is shortly going to be very wet indeed is going to make this absolutely fascinating, Larty, because if they go into a corner together, it could be carnage. And you'd imagine at the moment that BMC are shouting to Quickstep, just at least letting them know they are coming through on the right-hand side.
I don't understand how you can do no drafting on such a narrow road. It's going to be very interesting to watch these overtakes.
Especially if there are crosswinds. If the wind's coming from the side and they are fanned across the road. As you can see, it is quite narrow here. It is going to be difficult to not take at least some advantage from slipstreaming behind. And actually, if we look at the Quickstep formation, they really are kind of in line with BMC. Although it did look as though BMC kind of saved something for the overtake there, didn't it?
Yeah,
I mean,
interesting strategy.
They crept up to Quickstep floors, but once they got there, they really injected some pace with Stefan Kung there on the front and immediately put some daylight between themselves and the Belgian squad behind. But yeah, it looks like they're going to be maintaining that gap for quite some time, because they will still be getting an advantage here, last year.
Quite a good advantage.
20 metres behind. And again, it will be interesting to see whether the commissaire... Same thing here with Bahrain Merida. They've been overtaken by Team Roompot's NL Netherlands Lottery, but they are still remaining at a fairly close distance behind them.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting because also, how do you define drafting? Should the team who are being overtaken be compelled to kind of ease off for 2 to 3 seconds so that the other team can come round them and they're not drafting? Yeah, so we see Quickstep there within, what's that, 5 to 10 bike lengths. So there is certainly an aerodynamic advantage there, and it is such a narrow road there.
We're
very interesting.
Having some more questions coming in. In a few moments' time, we're going to cut over to Mr. Social, John Cannings, to find out what you've all been saying. I've spotted one question myself, which is, can Dan give a weather report from K. Reet Veerdigum? Well, I've just been looking up on my favourite app, Windfinder, and it doesn't just do wind, it also does precipitation as well. It is supposed to be sunny around the area of Maastricht today, which is only 20 kilometres away from where this team time trial is being held. So I don't suppose they were expecting rain here today. There's a 20 km/h wind coming from a westerly direction at the moment, so that will see them fanning across the road on the short sections which head north or south, but most of this course is heading either east or west, so they'll be dealing, like yesterday, with more of a tailwind and a headwind than a crosswind.
Definitely. Don't forget, if you're watching, we do want to hear from you in the comments, and why not share one of the live videos to see how many viewers we can get today.
Right, John, what are people saying out there underneath the videos?
There's a lot of questions regarding how fast you actually think they're going to be riding at today, what sort of average speeds. I mean, obviously, like you say, it's a very, very flat course, largely. A little bit technical, narrow roads, and of course, will drafting play a part in it? That's what we really want to know.
Yeah, well, they're not allowed to draft behind the other teams. Of course, they're drafting behind their teammates in the team time trial formation for the chase. But under the Hammer rules, they are not allowed to draft even once they catch the riders and teams in front. But given the narrowness of the roads that they are having to deal with on today's chase, that's going to be very difficult not to take at least some advantage from the team that are in front of you.
We've got a few spots of rain now, which is going to be, after a few dry days on European roads, we'll start to get the oil coming out just with a little kind of drizzle of rain, which is going to be difficult.
Yeah, it's going to make things treacherous, isn't it? Especially on time trial bikes.
You can see the shine on the road
quite
already.
Twitchy, aren't they, time trial bikes? If you're not used to one especially, they just feel slightly more twitchy than your road bike. Definitely. And maybe slightly less grip due to the stiffness, etc. of the frame. And they don't want to be breaking through the corners because, as you said last, it has been dry for quite some time over there, and that always makes things a little bit more slippery once you get some wet roads.
So we can see Trek, well, we could see Trek there who are riding on a matte finish time trial bike, and that is with way less paint in order to reduce the overall weight of the bikes.
Yeah, because time trial bikes, under normal circumstances, are quite a lot heavier than their road counterparts, aren't they? So whilst teams generally have to add a little bit of weight to their road bikes in order to meet the UCI's minimum weight limit of 6.8 kilos, often when we go out to the big Grand Tours and weigh the time trial bikes, they can be upwards of 8 kilograms, can't they? So they're quite a lot heavier than the road bikes.
Yeah, what, a typical disc wheel might weigh about 1 kilo? And then the climbing wheels that they use might be 1 kilo for a pair.
Yeah, so it is a huge difference. Any more questions coming in, John?
Yeah, we've got Dell on YouTube who's asking, why can't teams from this group win the whole shebang? If a team is 5 minutes faster than the others, they totally deserve it.
Well, I guess there is that. Yeah, I guess if you are that much quicker than any of the teams in the first group, then possibly you could well say that they deserve to win the overall. I think the original idea, as I said, from the Hammer Series was that all the teams, all 16, would be off and on the course at the same time. But due to health and safety, they've had to split them into 2 groups of 8. So if you've just joined us, the group now is the group of teams which finish between 9th and 16th overall after the first 2 days of racing. They can have the possibility now of winning today's day 3, the chase, but they don't have the possibility of winning the Hammer Series overall. I don't think we're going to end up with that kind of scenario, are we? Because I can't see any of the teams in Group 2 putting that amount of time into the leading teams, but it could be interesting if that ever does happen.
Yeah. We've also got a few other questions coming in regarding equipment, you know, and obviously Bahrain Merida having their bikes unfortunately stolen last night. And should the other teams have all used road bikes to make it fair on them?
Like an unwritten rule,
Exactly,
like waiting
yeah.
for Dumoulin after he's stopped on the side of the road. I like seeing, I'm not sure what your thoughts are on this, Lasty, but I like seeing team time trials on time trial bikes. I think that just, you know, the low aerodynamic position, it makes it look a lot slicker, doesn't it, when they're going along? And I guess there is a point at which you could say maybe they should do it on road bikes, given that they're going to be catching each other. But I like the time trial bikes.
Yeah, I really like checking the time trial bikes out, but I think for this event it would have been interesting to see them all on road bikes because, you know, the road bikes handle slightly better, and maybe that would have allowed them to bring in drafting and other tactics too.
Yeah, the problem that I could have envisaged if they allowed teams to draft would that be 3-4 teams coming to the line to go for victory. And the simple thing about the chase today is that when the next group goes off, as they come to the finish, we're going to know for sure which team's going to win the series, because it's basically the first team across the line wins. And given the corners, we're unlikely to see a sprint finish side by side amongst 2 teams. If you allowed each team to draft amongst each other, if you've got 4 teams coming together and therefore 20 riders, we as commentators will be trying to find the best placed 4th place rider from an individual team. And that would mean that we might have to do some calculations or look at repeats, and we wouldn't be able to call who the winner of the series was as they crossed the line, which is the idea of today, isn't it?
I think the joy, definitely. The joy of this stage is in the simplicity, which is first to cross the line in the second group is the winner.
Right, Team Trek Segafredo crossed the line, still leading this race, but let's not forget that they started with a 55-second advantage over Team BMC, and that already has been cut to just about 12 or 13 seconds there as they crossed the line for the first time to complete the first lap out of 3. So given that speed from Team BMC, Lassie, I think that we could well see Team BMC catch and overtake Trek Segafredo on this next lap.
Quick Step are going way faster through those corners than BMC, and they may well both catch Trek.
Well, just to give some name checks to the riders in both BMC and Quick Step floors. Quick Step starting with their number 61, Gianluca Brambilla, climber really from Italy. Remy Cavagna is a French rider who recently finished runner-up at the Tour of Belgium in the general classification. The very experienced Belgian rider Dries Devenins is their number 63, coming straight out of the Giro d'Italia, where he featured in a number of breakaways. Yves Lampard has featured strongly in both of the opening 2 stages. And finally, Max Schachmann, the German rider, who's very good at individual time trials, so he'll be a powerhouse for them today. BMC with an incredibly strong team for team time trials, and they will be devastated that they didn't get to start in the first 8 teams, which incidentally starts at 5 minutes past 4 local time, so in 55 minutes from now. Tom Bowley, a very good young time trialer. Stefan Kung, a very, very strong individual time trial rider. Danielos, just strong full stop. Quinziato, there another Italian rider, is the national Italian champion in that discipline. And Miles Scottson is the young Australian road champion who won that title at the start of this year. So they have got an incredibly strong squad, and that is showing out there on the road, isn't it? They are now about to catch Trek Segafredo, who started off first from this Group 2, and at the moment we're going, or in a few moments' time, we're going to have 3 teams in very close proximity at the front of this group.
Yeah, Remy Cavagna for Quick Step Floors was really driving it through those corners. He was actually running on the aero extensions all the way through most of those.
Wow, that was never something I was confident of, even when it was dry.
And then it's just started to rain. It must be, interesting conditions for the riders out there. This is going to get fascinating when it comes to all these little overtakes, because Quick Step, although they've been passed by BMC, they haven't been distanced by BMC.
Well, I think they will be getting an advantage. If we look at BMC here, what, 5-6 metres behind Trek Segafredo, at this point they will be saving energy just before they make the catch. And if Trek Segafredo remain in within a similar distance to them as Quick-Step Floors have since they were overtaken, I think that the power difference could be quite significant between the two teams, and therefore we could have a scenario where 3 teams are coming towards the line, and the teams that have been in second and third place for the previous couple of laps will have saved a bit of energy and might have enough left in their legs to make a final assault and a final sprint to the line, and that could be very interesting indeed.
You can actually see, you just mentioned that you were very nervous to corner on the extensions on a time trial bike. You can see just the difference between the riders on Caja Rural. You've got some who are a little more cautious, some who are just going for it. Oh, got an overtake.
Yeah, this
BMC
is the
have
catch.
Actually flown by Trek there, haven't they?
The catch and the... Yeah, they played it exactly the same way as they did when they caught Quick-Step. They stayed behind them for a couple of minutes just to kind of gather themselves and keep some energy. And then when they made that overtake of Trek Segafredo, they really went for it and they really tried to increase the pace to immediately drop the American squad. But now we've got 3 teams and it will be very interesting to see, Larcy, just how the UCI commissaires judge this, because as we can see from the overhead shot very clearly, Quick-Step are right behind Trek Segafredo. They are now attempting to overtake. I'm not sure. I hope so.
Quick-Step through the corners are the fastest team on the road at the moment. But this is great to watch.
Yeah.
Well, and here we go.
Yeah, and they're just coming out to the back wheel of Team BMC here as well. So this is not a situation that any of these riders would
Which
ever
gap are they going to take? Are they going to go left or right?
Looks like they're going to go on the left again, doesn't it? But yeah, I guess Quick-Step Floors are currently just sitting slightly to the left in terms of a line to BMC. But the thing is, it is very difficult to completely stay out of the slipstream, isn't it? Because if the team that's at the front of affairs, which currently is Team BMC there in the red, if they're switching from one side of the road to the other, it means that you've got to do the opposite in order to not to get any benefit at all from the team in front. And I am sure, lastly, that the second group of teams, which will remind you, is Team Sky, Team Sunweb, Nippo Vini Fantini, Lotto Sudal, Movistar, Cannondale Drapac, Orica Scott, and Team Lotto NL Jumbo. They, of course, will be on their home trainers outside their team buses at the moment, warming up. But I have no doubt that they will have their phones on their tri-bars streaming this race live, hopefully from GCN, on Facebook or YouTube, and seeing how this plays out, because this is as unknown to them as it is to the rest of us.
Yeah, interesting. If you go onto the Velon website or app and take a look at the rider data, you can see the data from the guys who are warming up.
Oh, nice.
They're ticking along at between 0.5 and 0.1 kilometres an hour, but you know, they are there nevertheless. I think Quick-Step could take this. You know, I think that they are a little more confident in the rain. They've had the advantage of sitting 10 to 20 metres behind BMC for much of the race now. Well, actually Trek are getting even more advantage because they are again behind Quick-Step. 500 watts for Remy Cavagna on the front.
Yeah, I mean, that just really brings it home just how much power you need to be able to put out to be on a World Tour team and competing in a 5-man team time trial chase. You can see it's dropped considerably there just for a few moments' time. It is quite stochastic power, isn't it, in that it goes up and down very instantaneously, but they will all be averaging over 500 watts at the point at which they're on the front. But it's not always the point that you're on the front which is hardest in a team time trial, is it? Once you've done your turn, you've been doing over 500 watts, and you pull off to the side, as the number 3 there, Garcia from Team Bahrain Merida, has done. It's this point here where you then have to accelerate again onto the back of your team. That can hurt more than the riding you're doing at the front.
I've got, before I talk about that, Dan, I've actually got a question for you. What does stochastic mean?
Very variable in nature.
Random. Yes. Okay, cool. But I think many of us as cyclists and road cyclists will have experienced this sort of team time trial dynamic in something like a chain gang, or even just when you're smashing it through and off with your friends, because it's, you know, you experience it when someone goes to the front and puts in a little too much effort and distances you might then drop off the back a little bit. Is it similar to that, or have I got it totally wrong?
No, I think you're exactly right. I mean, it's a fundamental point in every cyclist's head, isn't it, that you need to stick on the wheel in front at all costs.
But that can lecturing Bahrain
here. Yeah, the Dutch commissaire. I forget his name now, but he's been around for a long time. Just explain to the riders that they can't sit directly behind the team in front of them. But interestingly, we haven't seen that
They've got
for
no
our
choice
first
if he
3
drives
teams,
there,
have we?
If he's driving on the right of them and they're on the left of the road,
Yeah, that's true.
they can't not sit in the draft.
Right, so the situation on the road is that BMC Floors have made up, BMC Racing have made up their 55-second deficit already to Trek Segafredo. That's the distance between them by time that they started out at this morning. They are now leading on the road. Quick-Step Floors, meanwhile, who started 39 seconds behind the American squad, they have now overtaken them as well. And actually, that's now a bigger gap, Lassie, isn't it? Between Team BMC and Quick-Step behind. We must have 30 metres or so between those two teams. Trek Segafredo, though, still very much in contact with the Belgian squad, sandwiched between those two red teams out there on the road.
I really think that Quick-Step closed it up on the technical later part of this lap. I think they took about 10 seconds out of BMC there.
Well, we'll see. We'll see, won't we?
I don't know if anyone's interested, but the Criterium de Dauphiné has finished today, so we've got some results in from that as
already?
well.
Wow.
Already, yeah. Thomas de Gent smashed it, won by 44 seconds.
Wow. Yeah, interesting. That was from the early breakaway I was reading earlier that he was in. So the breakaway specialist Thomas de Gent does it again. Well, that will allow you all to concentrate very much on this chase race now. So we could go about explaining things again, couldn't we, for those of you who have just joined us after watching the Criterium du Dauphiné. This is the final day of 3 for the inaugural Hammer Series here in Limburg in the southern area of the Netherlands. Day 1 was the climb, day 2 was the sprint. The accumulated positions gave them an overall ranking for the chase today. Each team will start off in accordance with their ranking from the first 2 days, with some base time differences between the teams on the road. Those base time differences being 30 seconds between the first and the second squads, then 25 to third, 20 to fourth, 15 to fifth, and then 15 seconds in fact between all of the teams from that point onwards in the two groups as they've been split out on the road. This is basically the race for the minor placings. So this being Group 2, the first group off today, they do have the possibility in this group of winning the chase, day 3 on its own. BMC setting a very fast time out there at the moment. However, none of these 8 teams out there on the road at the moment have the chance to win the overall series. That rests with the second group, led off by Team Sky at 5 minutes past 4 local time in the Netherlands. So, as things stand on the road at the moment, BMC Racing, who started off third from the start today at 55 seconds to Trek Segafredo, they, as you can see there, have overtaken not just Quick-Step, but also further down the course, the Trek Segafredo squad. So they are putting themselves in with a great chance, Lasty, of winning the chase day 3 of this race, even though they can't win the overall series.
Yeah, they definitely are, and like we said before, Trek, Quick-Step and BMC are all teams that we're very surprised not to see up there in the top 8.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams are going to have to go back to the drawing board, aren't they? Having kind of studied the way that things went over the first 2 days of racing, analysing that and deciding, you know, what their lineup and what their strategy is going to be for the next rounds of this series. We understand that this is going to be the only Hammer Series for 2017, but already for next year they've signed up to do a race in Norway at the Tour de Fjord organisers there. So we will have at least 2 next year, and possibly even more than that. Yeah. It will always take the same format: climbing stage, sprinter stage, and then the chase on the final day. And to remind you, in Group 2, which sets off at 5 minutes past 4 local time, it is the first team across the line who wins the overall. So it couldn't really get more simple than that, even though I personally have some trouble calculating the points so far.
We've got a drafting alert. Trek are definitely drafting. Quick-Step there. Oh, they've been distanced out of the corner, but they closed it right up in the corner. We've got a question from Pori8898 who says, why is the race called Hammer?
I have no idea, I'm afraid.
It's like a common cycling term, isn't it? Many people are familiar with putting the hammer down. I'm not sure I put the hammer down quite as much as I used to. But yeah, I think it's just a cycling term, Pori8898. Don't forget to get your questions in on YouTube in the live comments there. We've got Social John looking after those on Facebook. Social John is also looking after those on Twitter. We're at GCN Tweet. And give this one a share too while you're there.
Omega G has written in asking, is the Pinarello Bolide technically illegal under UCR regulations because the aero bars are 3D printed and custom for each rider?
Now, I'm going to defer to John on this very shortly, but it's my opinion and my belief that because the 3D printed bars are available in the catalogue, but not necessarily always in stock, that they are legal. But if we could go over to Social and Tech Corner, as it's now going to be known. John, is that correct?
Yes, I would say if it is actually being made available from the manufacturer, then yes, it's fine. However, there may well be a very long waiting period to actually be able to receive the product. It's similar. You do see occasional riders using products which are possibly unbranded or unbadged, but they will have. I mean, a team like Team Sky will have gone through and made sure that all the boxes were ticked to make sure that was legal.
That's an interesting one actually moving forward, isn't it? Do they actually need to make the bars themselves available for sale, or can they simply make the 3D printed file available for someone to download and 3D print themselves?
That's a difficult question.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the case, we recently looked at Geraint Thomas's bike, which was featuring the 3D printed handlebars, and they would have been custom made to him. So if the file was available to someone else, unless they could replicate Geraint's position and have the same bike, etc.
There's no advantage.
Yeah, exactly that, Tom.
But I was just wondering whether, in terms of the actual rules from the UCI, which, incidentally, for those who are new to the sport, state that a team's equipment must be also available for the general public to buy within 6 months, I think it is, of them first using said equipment. Whether they can just say, well, it is available for people to download and create exactly the same piece of equipment that we've got.
You see,
is it a way of bypassing the rules slightly?
I'd definitely argue. I'd argue now in the case of 3D printed components that it's changed it, because yes, it may be prohibitively expensive and quite difficult to find someone who 3D prints titanium. Oh, we've got a quick step rider drop there, number 61.
Yeah, back to the comments in a few moments' time. At 61, Gianluca Brambilla is done for the day with still 16.7
Has he got a puncher? He looks like he has a
kilometres to
mechanical.
go.
He looks.
Yeah, he's looking behind for the team
Tyres
car.
look fine, don't they?
Yeah, can't see a puncture, but his
He'll be
team
waiting
car,
a while
of
for the
course,
car.
is a little way behind because he's firstly got to wait for the BMC one to come through.
Neat use of the bike lane there.
Here is his team car now, he's just coming up to them. But to remind you, it is the fourth rider across the line, and they've only started each team with 5. So the fact that Brambilla has gone from the team right now will mean that they need to keep all of the 4 remaining riders together on the run into the line. Otherwise, they're going to be losing a hell of a lot of time. They being Cavagna, the French rider, Devenins, the Belgian, with his compatriot Yves Lampart, and the German rider Max Schachmann. So if any of those riders now have any kind of mechanical issue or puncture or crash, that is going to severely take away from the time that quick step floors are going to be able to set today. So again, in the team time trials that we are used to seeing, where there are 8 or 9 riders on the start and it's the 5th rider across the line which counts, you can afford to use up the energy of certain riders earlier on in the stage, really put the power through the pedals, give it their all, and then sit up in the last 15, 20 kilometres, or even after the first half of the stage. You can't really afford to have that tactic here, because you never know when you're going to have some bad luck from a mechanical point of view, or if one of your riders might crash out. You've got to try and keep 5 riders together for as long as you possibly can.
You definitely have. You definitely have. We've got on the tech question. Tom Wilson Carey has said he would be in heaven if he could 3D print a whole Pinarello Bolide in his living room. I think many people would agree with you there, Tom. Someone down has asked about the format again. It's Nikolai Anderson. He's on YouTube, and he said, "Why can't BMC win the overall? They're absolutely flying." I don't understand.
It's something that you will have to ask the organisers of the Hammer Series, but what they decided was that it wasn't safe to have all 16 teams out there on the road at the same time. I think that is what they wanted to do. I'm not sure whether it was simply health and safety rules or the UCI said no, we need to have them separated with 2 groups, and therefore they then decided that the second group shouldn't be able to win the overall, because what they want in the Hammer Series is that it's very simple to watch this final day. First team across the line wins, and if in the second part of this race it's found that one of the teams that started on the first group took enough time out of the teams in the second group to actually be the fastest overall, it would be much more complicated. So I think they just decided to keep it simple. Whoever crosses the line first in the second round, which is coming up in about 30 minutes time, will be the winners of the Hammer Series.
Yeah, so I think my understanding of that, Dan, is actually if you look, the time gaps between the teams are assigned kind of by the organisation, and then there's a little gap depending on how many bonus seconds you get. So if you think of it, BMC, who started 55 seconds behind Trek Segafredo would have started at least 2 minutes 16 seconds behind Team Sky, and BMC would never have closed a gap of over 3 minutes to Team Sky in a 45 kilometre
No,
time trial.
you'd imagine.
So they could never have won in the first place.
You'd imagine that it would have been extremely difficult for anyone to close more than the 2 minutes 16 seconds, which is the last team, Lotto NL Jumbo, in the Group 2 behind Team Sky. Of course, you would have had to add on extra seconds to them, to Trek Segafredo, and like you said lastly, BMC Floors would have been starting more than 3 minutes behind Team Sky, and despite how well they're going out there today, look down at Team Sky start list, that would have been a very difficult task indeed. So I think the winners will be the winners regardless. I don't see that any of these teams in the group that's out there on the road at the moment would have made any kind of inroads really into the lead of Team Sky.
So Mohammed Isyad, in answer to your question, so who is leading now? It is Team BMC, who started off actually third in the running order. They're leading from Quick-Step Floors, who did start off second, so they've maintained their place, but they've maintained their place by overtaking Trek Segafredo, who are currently running third. Benjamin Barber's got an interesting tactical question down that I think you'll be able to give a really interesting answer to, and that is that given it's fourth rider across the line that the time is taken on, how will the teams approach the finish line? What sort of formation will they go across it?
Yeah, he asked whether they will try and go in a horizontal line across the finish to make the time as low as possible for the finish. And that is what you will see riders doing and teams trying to do on the team pursuit on the track. But that's a very different scenario, isn't it? A 4-minute event versus today, which is going to be in the region of 50 to 55 minutes. Often what you will see in a team time trial is that the riders are so close to their limit. There's one rider with a bit more strength left than anyone else. They're on the front, everyone else is hanging on for grim death, and therefore they can't actually come alongside and horizontal to reduce that time. They're just trying to hang onto the wheel in front of them. So I would imagine the majority of teams will end up coming across the line in just a single line as opposed to a horizontal line.
And we've seen Quick-Step and Trek again close the gap slightly to BMC there on the technical section by the finish. Let's keep this. Have we got any more questions coming on social media?
Really about regarding the second wave of riders may well start in worse weather today. So they could well be going slower because of the poor weather. Will they? Will the first group of riders have adjusted their tyre pressures, do you think, before they started today, knowing that there was a chance of rain?
Well, that definitely is something they would do if it's definitely raining and the roads are wet, or if they know that it is going to rain later on. They will take some of the pressure out of the tyres to increase the grip on the surface between the tyres and the road. The forecast that I looked at didn't seem to suggest they were going to have quite as much rain as they did. In fact, I think it has stopped out there on the road at the moment. If you look down now, it looks very dry, and the speed at which BMC are taking those corners suggests that they are very confident about their grip, and therefore that it's not particularly wet out there on the road at the moment. And the teams that are coming down the ramp on the second group will be very much hoping that the weather holds up for them as well. Stefan Kung still riding on the front. He is an absolute beast last year, isn't he? If you tuned in yesterday, we went through some of the numbers from Stefan Kung on the day one climb. His normalised power for 2 hours and around about 10 minutes was 420 plus watts, which really is quite incredible. In fact, I think his actual average was quite close to 400 watts, which is absolutely nuts.
Can you give like the headline on what normalised power is? Because I think it's probably quite an abstract figure for people, especially if they don't have a power meter.
Yeah, Sai explained it briefly yesterday, but normalised power is an algorithm that...
Got some more overtakes coming up.
Yeah, well this is a replay from what we've seen so far in the race, a recap. Dr. Andy Coggan came up with an algorithm which essentially means that normalised power gives you a sense of what the physiological cost was if you'd have done a steady state power throughout your ride. Because what we saw was that if you went out for a 1 hour interval session where you were doing multiple times up a climb flat out, you might end up with an average power over that 1 hour of 200 watts. Or you might go out and do a completely steady ride at 200 watts, and that would of course be far, far easier than the hill climb interval session. So normalised power is an algorithm which gives you an average power which represents how difficult it was in terms of the intervals that you've also done and the amount of time you spent over your threshold power. So on a course like Friday, which was the climb, where there were multiple climbs in each lap and they were digging really deep and going into the red, the difference in the normalised power versus the average power would have been reasonably large. Whereas if you've got a flat time trial, even on a team one like today, you're only doing sort of 15-20 second turns at the front. The differential between the average power and the normalised power will be significantly less.
Okay, so yeah, normalised power just basically expresses how difficult a ride would be, because your average doesn't always tell you that.
No, yeah, the average doesn't. It's a way of sort of allowing you to compare apples with oranges, I think, is the way that Dr. Andy Coggan always used to used to say about it. Here is a
BMC
puncture
right
at the
down to
front
number 13.
for Daniel Oss, number 13 of Team BMC. He's the rider whose tweet we put up yesterday. He was involved
I
in
wonder
a
how his
crash.
shin's looking now.
Yeah, he was involved in a crash yesterday with Caleb Ewan and Raymond Sinkledam,
He's
amongst
got a
others.
plaster on.
In fact, he's just pulled over completely to the side of the road. I'm wondering whether they're using clinchers last year. He was really struggling to handle the bike there after he punctured. And what we normally see with tubular tyres is that you can roll along a little bit easier than you would be able to on a clincher puncture.
He was using a Pro front wheel, right? And that was the one that, of course, Team Sky had 2 or 3 of those fail in the Tirreno Adriatico team time trial.
Yes.
And they recently commented on why that might be, which was apparently Sky were using tyres that may have been a little too narrow for the wheel, so you must use tyres that are the manufacturer's specified width, which meant that not only were they slightly more difficult to handle, but there was also a puncture effect that then splintered the wheel.
He's also number 13 in the race, and I also noted that his number was up the correct way. He didn't go along with the traditional way of reversing the number upside down.
What you're saying, John, is that he's only got himself to blame for his puncture.
Possibly.
I think you made your own luck. Oh, he's catching them now.
Well, he's catching a different team, isn't he? I mean, he's going to have to put in some amount of effort, Daniel Oss, if he wants to get back up to his teammates. Not sure whether he'll be allowed any drafting behind the team car, which you can see just going through now. So not only has he got to get up to Trek Segafredo, who under the rules he's not actually allowed to draft behind, he's then got to get past the Quick Step Floors squad as well, and then make his way back up to the teammates, which are remaining up here now. Yeah, that's why I was wondering whether it wasn't a tubular tyre there.
What's the fastest you've ever gone in a time trial, Dan? Someone was asking. It was All I See Is Red.
To be honest, I don't know, but when you're riding along the flat on a team time trial, you're kind of averaging around about 55 to 60 k's per hour. I don't remember doing too many team time trials with massive downhills, but I must have got up to 70 k's per hour or over, I would have thought.
Yeah, and another, well, I've never gone 76 k an hour, like All I See Is Red. All I See Is Red sounds like a very fast time trialist to me. Grant Gillilan is asking, is that Merida on road bikes with aero bars? Yes, it is, because unfortunately they had their bikes stolen before the start of the race.
Right, well, 9.1 kilometres to go then for Team BMC, who you can see riding on the front. Managed to get their name right this time. We did incidentally have a comment in from Anthony Harlock saying there should be a drinking game. Every time Dan says BMC floors, take a drink. I've been mixing two teams up.
You should go and get another one, actually.
Yeah, but BMC with 8.9 kilometres to go, they've covered around about 2.5 laps out of the 3 so far. They look like they are going to be setting the fastest time out of this second group here on the roads today. We've still got the leading teams and the best 8 teams from the first 2 days still to come. In fact, we've got, what time is it now? Half an hour now until Team Sky will roll off from the start to lead out Group 2 on the day. But it's going to be a hard team to beat, BMC out on the road. Looking down their roster, it's full of time trial specialists. It will be a bit of a blow to them to have lost Daniel Oss over the last couple of kilometres, and it will be very surprising if he makes his way back into this group. But nevertheless, BMC's team time is going to be very, very hard to beat for any of the squads in Group 2
Certainly.
today.
Dom has said it's time to pull a wattage bazooka for Daniel Oss, and I think we will almost certainly hand deliver a wattage bazooka t-shirt to Daniel Oss if he catches his team there.
Oh, you think?
Hand deliver at a race.
If he catches his team?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he got slightly bogged there, didn't he, by the UCI Commissaire's vehicle, who seemed to be deliberately slowing through the corner to make it harder for him to get back up towards his team. But I don't think he's even got past the Trek squad, which I'm not surprised about at all.
It will be impressive if he drags past those two teams.
I mean, they'd be devastated.
Quite amazing.
As a team time trial squad who are sharing the workload between 5 riders, to have an individual rider pass you wouldn't look very good at all. So I don't think we're going to see any more of Daniel Oss today. Nevertheless, the 4 riders that are remaining at the front here for Team BMC are doing a fantastic job, and just 8 kilometres to go now until they will reach the finish and set the benchmark basically for the day. Right, we are still reading as many of your comments as we possibly can below the Facebook and YouTube videos, and indeed on @GCN Tweet on Twitter. So we'll head over to Social John now to find out what the latest is.
Yeah, we've got Bram Tankink, who actually, his teammates are riding today in the second wave of riders of Team Lotto NL Jumbo. He comments on the format of the Hammer Series. Brilliant idea. Team pursuit on the road, #Hammer Series after a climb and sprint course. This is a welcome addition for cycling, and I totally agree with him on this. It's fantastic to see such attacking racing. The previous 2 stages have simply been that. Right from the gun, it's been no holds barred. And you're even seeing this now with the team time trial. There's teams, they're catching each other, they're getting caught, they're being passed by the other one. It's a real game of almost of chess on wheels, but a faster game of chess.
Yeah, there's been quite a few comments from the riders both within the Hammer Series race about how hard it's been, and also from riders who haven't been taking part but have been watching online or on television at the format of racing, saying how exciting it was to watch. And incidentally, one of the riders who commented on that was Tom Dumoulin, who recently won the Giro d'Italia. Big star, of course, in the Netherlands before then. Huge star now. He competed on day 1 in the climb, picked up lots of points for his team Sunweb, but hasn't taken part in the rest of it. I'd imagine he's firstly quite tired, and secondly has quite a lot of things that he also needs to attend and to do at the moment. But he commented on Twitter yesterday and said, "I'm watching at home. This really is exciting to watch," and we had quite a few replies, of course, from his followers from that point of view. Looks like we've got another puncture now here at BMC.
They have to wait.
Number
They have to
12,
wait.
Stefan Kung, and they don't have the team car behind them, so they have to wait. It's 4 riders across the line.
And he is the real engine room of the team, really.
Yeah, this is a disaster for them. Just about to, they have got the team car behind, so they've allowed them through, but it won't be long now before Quick Step Floors come on past this group.
3 riders track standing up ahead.
This is the action we've really wanted to see, isn't it? Is there going to be confusion or not? This is really exciting now.
Well, just goes to show you how much of a time gap they've carved out over Quick Step Floors, because they were waiting on a long side, weren't they? Yeah, they were waiting for a long time, BMC, to change the bike of Stefan Kung, who's now back up and running. Let's not forget, though, that BMC started 16 seconds behind Quick Step Floors, so they have had to catch and pass the Belgian squad. And they will be slightly more... they have more energy in their legs now, won't they? Having track standard effectively, as you said a few moments ago, in waiting for Stefan Kung. But that's massive bad luck for them. Firstly, a puncture for Daniel Oss. They were with 5 riders. Then a puncture for Stefan Kung. They didn't wait for Oss because they still had 4 riders out there on the road. They had no choice but to wait for Stefan Kung, because it's the 4th rider across the line that stops the clock.
It's just a real rhythm breaker at that stuff, isn't it? You stop, your legs might get a little bit dead, and you can see that because Quick Step and Alcaraz. Is that another issue?
Yeah.
BMC have got a 4th guy off the back there. Ian Kelly, or Owen Kelly, has commented, "Of all the things, helmets are one of the most boring cycling topics. Why can't you guys talk about chain sets and stuff?" And well, I guess we can. What chainring size do you think they'll be using today then?
I was going to ask you the same thing, but I would
Trek
imagine...
have gone past BMC.
Yeah,
as well.
BMC are having all
What
sorts
has
of
gone
problems.
wrong here?
We should get onto chainring sizes when there's less interesting things to be talking
number
about here.
16's got a puncture now.
Yeah, I
Who's
wonder
that?
whether it's their choice of tyres
Scotsman.
today, whether they've gone for some very lightweight, low rolling resistance
they're-
tyres, or whether it's just bad
I
luck.
think they're just on standard Vittoria tyres. Oh, Scotsman was just worried that he had a puncture. He didn't actually have one. Or he's going to have to wait for so long for his team car that he can't get a spare bike. No, I think they're on Vittoria tyres, aren't they? It's not unusual. I wouldn't expect an undue number of punches there.
Well, this is a complete disaster for the BMC squad, who have been setting by far the best
There's
times
Marco
out there.
Pinotti getting out there.
On the road. Spare bike once again for Miles Scottson, and they've lost all of the advantage that they'd so they built up over the first part of this team time trial chase today, and it's a disaster for them out there.
What a nightmare.
The roads had been wet, but they've dried out over the last 15 or 20 minutes, so you can't imagine that was a factor in the punctures. But that's the 3rd puncture in the space of 10 Ks for Team BMC.
Yeah, that is very, very bad luck. See, John, it wasn't just kind of confined to Daniel Oss not putting his 13 the incorrect way up.
No, I like to think he hadn't cursed the whole team. But
Yeah, I don't think he
number
had.
13.
So Stig Xavier has suggested a blue flag for the commissaire to indicate allow to pass, maybe? This is a totally new format, so I'm sure that any suggestions or anything like that are probably quite welcome. Oh, another one!
Another puncture. This
Quinziato.
time it's Manuel Quinziato, and you can see they're at the point now where they're just laughing about it. They realise that
They can't win
the
anyway.
win today is out of the window even for day 3, because they've had so much bad luck now. 4 punctures in 10 kilometres. What is going on with that with Team BMC? Is that just bad luck?
I don't know. I thought Quinziato had a share of bad luck when he had to give Matt a suitcase tour. So, an interesting point here is, what if this was to happen to Team Sky, Dan?
Oh, thumbs up from Manuel. Well, it's going to mean more to Team Sky, isn't it, than it is
They are
to,
just laughing, aren't they?
to BMC. Well, what can you do at this point? 4
You can't win.
punches in
At
such
least they
quick
can't win the
succession.
race. At least they can't win it.
Yeah. This is the second group, to remind you, if you've just tuned in for coverage of today's finale of the inaugural Hammer Series. This event is called The Chase, and we are currently watching the second group of riders on the road, who started off first, incidentally. So these are the teams who finished between 9th and 16th place overall on the aggregate over the first 2 days. The teams who have done best, i.e. the top 8 teams overall, they will be setting off down the start ramp in around about 25 minutes time, so in the region of 20 minutes after this stage has finished. They will be led off by Team Sky, who have the best aggregate position over the first 2 days, followed by Team Sunweb at 32 seconds, Nippo Vini Fantini a full minute behind the British World Tour squad. The riders and teams in this group can't win the Hammer Series overall. They are just out there trying to set the best time because they can win today's stage. They can't win, though, the overall series.
This is fascinating. They're back on dry roads again now, so there was only a very brief rain shower that kind of disrupted their first lap. Yeah, I can't believe 4 punches.
I stand corrected as well. Ryan Kunst has told me Danielos is Italian. Number 13 means nothing to him. 17 is the unlucky number in Italy. So there we are.
I never knew.
So who's number 17? Well, there isn't a number 17 today, so
yeah,
well, no one's unlucky. For
BMC Racing Team is an American team, though. I think 13 is an unlucky number across the English-speaking world, isn't it? Who knows?
Right, well, we've had some more questions
You were right,
coming in. Firstly, there are also a lot of punctures during the Giro d'Italia, someone has commented. I wonder if the teams gamble too much in regards to rolling resistance and would be better off just using more durable tyres and not getting the punctures. Well, if that is the case for Team BMC and they've gambled on some very low rolling resistance and therefore lightweight tyres and picked up 4 punctures, then yes, you are very much right. It's a gamble which hasn't paid off for them today. Meanwhile, the end of this first stage for this group of riders is just coming
up. This looks good.
Yeah, just coming towards the finish line now. Quick Step Floors, who started off second out of this group at 39 seconds to Trek Segafredo, you can see on the bottom of your screens now. They are going to cross the line first in just a few moments' time and set the benchmark for all of the others to try and beat later on today. 30 metres to go for them now. They cross the line. It's the 4th rider across who stops the clock. Likewise for Trek Segafredo, who finished with all 5 riders. As you can see, plus 4 seconds to Trek Segafredo on the road itself. But given that they started with a 39-second advantage, that is a 43-second difference between them out on the road today in terms of the time taken to complete the 45.7 kilometre course.
Fast stuff. We're going to break for a caption competition shortly, but I wanted to read the tweet out from Orla at OrlaFlash on Twitter, who tweeted us and said, maybe someone in BMC misunderstood the hashtag Hammer Series and used some nails.
Very good.
Caption competition coming right up.
Right, well, here is Team BMC coming in now towards the finish with
caption
a much
competition on. Oh, caption competition. No, we'll go back to BMC. Then we'll do caption. Sorry.
With a much slower time than they would have anticipated, given how well they were going out on the course just a few moments ago. Yeah, if you've just joined us, 4 punctures in very quick succession for Team BMC. Incidentally, Danielos must have given up after he realised that he wasn't going to get back onto his team, because if he'd have carried on at the pace he was, you'd have thought that he would have caught back up after
probably overtaken him, dropped him.
Yeah, 3 further punctures for Miles Scottson, Manuel Quinziato and Stefan Kung.
Which BMC rider didn't get a puncture? Tom Bowley is the only one who didn't punch it.
Yeah, lucky Tom. Alright, well, they're coming in towards the finish now. They started off 55 seconds behind Trek Segafredo out there on the road. I think they will be further behind that once they get across the finish line here. But what could have been really for Team BMC today, they probably and almost definitely would have set the fastest time out there on the road. 52 minutes and 38 seconds for Quick Step Floors.
The line.
Let's see what they stop the clock at. Team BMC hopefully will get their time in just a few moments' time.
I think we might be struggling because I imagine so many of them have gone on to spare bikes that they're now without transponders.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true.
Caption competition time, do you reckon, Dan?
Yeah.
What are we going to give the winner of the caption competition, John? We've got some GCN caps.
Yeah, we got some.
You should go and model one for us.
Okay.
GCN caps. Peak up for Social John.
Peak up or down? Let us know in the comments, actually.
And share this video.
Yeah, just give it a share, but let us know, peak down or peak up.
And the caption photo is going to be on screen now. It's a good one, it's BMC. Looking rather confused.
Right.
Used.
Yeah, well, that's your photo. Leave your best captions for said photo underneath the video wherever you are watching it right now, being that on our YouTube page or on our Facebook
Oh, we've got a sprint.
page.
We've got a sprint.
Yeah, this is the first time.
It's the Middle Eastern competition. However, Bahrain UAE have lost because they're third and fourth riders are miles behind.
Yeah, UAE Team Emirates coming across the line with just 2 riders. It's their 4th rider though who will count, so they haven't actually finished as a team until now. But that was the first sighting. We had 2 teams coming in next to each other, pretty much neck and neck on the line. But that will be interesting if that kind of scenario unfolds on the second group of the day.
Very interesting. We've had a lot of questions in, I guess understandably off the back of BMC's calamity, about punctures. So I think teams are perhaps using slightly more durable tyres nowadays, because many of them have moved on to 25C tyres, and tyre technology is getting better year on year, which will make them more puncture resistant, because that is a priority for the manufacturers. But people are asking, why don't they use unpuncturable tyres, which I guess would be solid rubber, and then why don't they use sealant?
Well, you can get solid tyres, can't you? But we understand. I don't know if you've ever used them yourself,
No.
Lars. I certainly haven't. We understand the handling properties of solid tyres leave a lot to be
They're on
desired.
Matt's first bike, perhaps.
And I'd imagine the rolling resistance also is huge. So
Oh, we've got a sprint. We have finally got a bunch sprint with two teams of 4.
Yeah, looks.
Well, actually no, because Caja Rural's guy is going to get done for drafting there shortly, as he went onto the back of the cycling academy line to then rejoin his
similar
own
colours,
team.
but not that similar. Yeah, a 2-up sprint between the Israeli Cycling Academy and Caja Rural. They started in 7th and 8th place respectively. Just 15 seconds separated them as they came across the line. So it will be Caja Rural who set the best time out of the 2 of them on the course today. But nevertheless, big sprint finish between the 2 teams as they come across the line. But if your 4th rider isn't able to keep up when they sprint towards the line, it doesn't mean anything, does it, for the first 3 riders who are sprinting?
Well, here in the mixed zone with the Quick-Step team, the winners of the race tonight.
Wow,
So there's
you can
some tired
see.
riders there. It's not a starter race. Oh,
That is not nice. That is a
That's
caption
unpleasant.
competition for you right there.
Yeah.
Here's our interview with Quick-Step.
Of the race and behind you, how difficult was it to keep an eye on things and ride your own race? Circuit and the fact
we know from the start
other teams were so close
BMC
around you in front and behind you. How difficult was it to keep an eye on things and ride your own race?
Specialist here on the start. Yeah, we know from the start the gap between us and BMC was very small. We want to be as slow as possible in their best time specialist here on the start. We knew they would catch us fast. They got some punctures and then could catch them back. We want to be the
so when you saw Daniel drop back after he'd had a puncture, did you start to think you were in with a chance against 4 riders of BMC?
Could catch him back. Yeah, that was.
So when you saw Daniel drop back after he'd had a puncture, did you start to think you were in with a chance against 4 riders of BMC?
The second puncture. That was maybe at the moment that we knew we had to bridge the gap of 16 seconds. We pushed to the end. Then we saw they had the second puncture.
So Dries Stevenage, once you guys saw that BMC had had another problem and yet another puncture, it's like you guys got a big rush of adrenaline and really started to sprint to the finish line. Once you guys saw that BMC had had another problem and yet another puncture, it's like you guys got a big rush of adrenaline and really started to sprint to the finish line from there because you knew you could take the win of the teams.
Well, apologies for that. We're having some technical issues with the audio of the interviews there with Quick-Step Floors, who've set the best time so far out of the first group on the road. We've still got 8 teams still to come. They will be starting at 5 minutes past 4 local time. So in about a quarter of an hour from now. Between now and then, Tom Last and I and Mr. John Social Cannings over there in the corner will be going through what they've done on the road already and also some of the key rules for the chase on the final day as well. There's your final standings from today so far. 52 minutes and 38 seconds for Quick-Step Floors. Trek Segafredo finishing 4 seconds behind them but starting 39 seconds in front. BMC Racing, who were leading out on the road by quite some margin, courtesy of 4 punctures, all for different riders out of their 5-man team, finishing 1 minute and 38 seconds behind the Belgian squad. As you can see, they are positioned 9th to 16th because we still have our top 8 teams on aggregate positions coming at 5 minutes past 4. They are going to be led off by Team Sky. Team Sunweb will coming down in second place. Unfortunately, we're not going to hear the interview here from Team BMC due to the audio issues that we are experiencing at the moment. Sunweb will go off 32 seconds after Team Sky, followed by the team of the weekend so far, Nippo Vini Fantini, a second division outfit from Italy. They've done very well over the first two stages, and they will start 1 minute behind Team Sky out on the road. Very difficult though, I think, lastly, for them to make any inroads into the World Tour squads in the team time trial.
We would never have expected them to be there in the first place. So it's going to be interesting to see what they can do.
Let's not count them out, but you'd imagine on pedigree that they wouldn't be able to catch up either Sunweb or Team Sky. Here's a look back at what was happening to BMC out there on the road today. John, can you think of any reason, apart from bad luck, why they might have experienced 4 punctures in the last 15 minutes of racing, all for different riders too?
Yeah, I really can't. If we'd had a real downpour of rain, then yes, you could expect it because of debris being washed into the road. But in this situation, I really can't think of anything at all. You know, we had a few comments, people suggesting sabotage. I don't believe that. I really can't understand it, Dan.
Yeah, you would imagine that if there was any kind of sabotage, that it wouldn't have just been BMC in the end who picked up the punctures, because by the time they got their 3rd and 4th punctures on the day, they'd already been overtaken by two squads out there on the road.
Yeah, that's right. So who knows what it could be.
I reckon they maybe all cut a corner. The BMC team took a corner particularly wide or particularly tight and ran through the same patch of glass or something else sharp.
Well, as we look back over the highlights from the first group out there on the road, we will tee up our explainer of today's stage from our very own Matt Stevens, who's been digging deep into the technical guide and rule book so that he can clearly explain to you exactly what the chase, which is what today is all about, is about. So that's coming up for you right now.
The Hammer Chase. The final Hammer Chase uses an extended version of the course used for the Hammer Sprint at 14.9 kilometres long, which the teams will cover 3 times, giving a total distance of 45.7 kilometres. This will be the battleground for Sunday's deciding race. The teams will ride time trial bikes and have to stay in team formation, with no drafting allowed should they catch each other. Starting positions will be determined by the leaderboard after the first 2 days. A pulsating, thrilling pursuit will then ensue, where the teams chase each other towards the finish line. Whichever team crosses it first will win the first ever Hammer race. Expect fireworks.
So, as Matt explains on that video, the order of the teams is defined by how many, by their positions added up from day 1 and day 2. And as you can see on the screen now, it is Team Sky who had the lowest aggregate position over the 2 days. Team Sunweb second best. If you were watching yesterday, you would have seen the on-screen graphic which said that Team Sunweb would start off in first place today. However, one of their riders, Raymond Sinkledown, was involved in a crash which also had Caleb Ewan hit the ground, as well as Daniel Oss, who tweeted a picture of some chain rings into his shin, which looked particularly nasty. Sinkledown was unable to finish yesterday, even though he is on their team list today, and therefore the points which he accumulated over the first few laps before that crash didn't count for Team Sunweb on the sprint yesterday. Once those calculations had been made and his points had been taken away, it meant that they finished a couple of positions down, and therefore Team Sky have been the best team over the first 2 days. Those 8 teams are separated by a base amount of seconds. So between the first and the second team off the start, there are 30 base seconds, then 25 between second and third, then 20 between third and fourth, and then 15 between all of the consecutive teams after the 4th team across the line. Added or taken away from those base seconds, though, are the bonus seconds which they picked up on the first couple of days. So each of the teams inside the top 10 on the climb, which was day 1 on Friday, and on the sprint, which was day 2 yesterday, will have picked up between 15 seconds for winning and 1 second for finishing 10th, which they then deduct from the team in front of them out there on the road. So to give you the examples of what's coming up now, Team Sky have the base time. Team Sunweb will start second out of our leading group of riders at 32 seconds. Then in third, it's Nippo Vini Fantini at 1 minute. Just 12 seconds after that Italian squad, Lotto Soudal will roll off. Then Movistar, 1 minute and 29 seconds behind Team Sky. The squad that you saw on your screens a few moments ago, Cannondale Drapat, they are 1 minute and 49 seconds behind the British World Tour squad. Then Orica Scott in 7th place, just over 2 minutes, 2 minutes and 2 seconds down. And Team Lotto NL Jumbo, they are the last of the 8 teams which we still have to come, and they will set out 2 minutes and 16 seconds down on Team Sky. So it is going to be difficult for that Dutch squad to win today. The first team across the line is going to be the winners.
Pretty simple.
It is indeed. Right, we now have around about 9 minutes before that second round will take place, and therefore in the region of an hour and 5 minutes before we can crown our first ever winners of the Hammer Series. So in those 9 minutes we are going to be delving into the comments that you are leaving us on @GCN Tweet on Twitter, or in the comment section beneath the YouTube live video or the Facebook live video. So have we had anything else of note coming in?
I think we have. I think it's time for a caption competition winner. I'm going to give you 2. I want you to choose the winner.
What was the photo last year? Let's remind us.
The photo
it's up on your screen.
Is up on screen now. It's BMC wondering exactly what is happening to them as they get their 4th puncture in the space of about 3 kilometres. I like this one from Ed Freeman. It's simple, but it gets the job done. This is wheelie frustrating. Or alternatively, Sevkan Kavakaru, proving that they have been watching the entire live stream and picking up on all of our errors, says, these BMC floors are so rough you get 4 punches and 10k. Dan.
BMC floors, yeah, my mistake on about 3 occasions of mixing up the names of 2 squads. Yeah, we'll go with the second one.
Sevkan, if you get in touch, Facebook or YouTube message, and we will get your prize sent out to you. It's a lovely GCN cap.
Yeah, which we will get John to model for you now. So we will have another caption competition during the second hour of our live broadcast as we look down on the teams continuing their warm-up away from their home trainers as they start to get a little bit nervous and have to head towards the start line. If we cut over to John now and make him full screen, you'll be able to see one of the prizes which will be available for you once again for the second caption competition, which we will do during this second round of the chase. You can see Marcel Seeberg there, the rider from Lotto Soudal, very tall German rider, doing his warm-up for the chase today. They will have all been on their home trainers lastly, weren't they? They were doing in the region of 20 to 30 minutes of a warm-up before today's race.
Yeah, and I think they'll throw in a few efforts there just to really open the engine up, won't they?
Well, here's a recap of what happened on the climb, which was the first day of racing back on Friday. Carlos Betancourt, who you can see here in the Movistar kit, absolutely dominating proceedings for his team Movistar. They won that race on day one, and it was mainly down to this man, wasn't it? He held his arms aloft at the end, and you could justify that for him, couldn't you, given that he was the one that picking up the points and his team won the day.
It was his first really strong ride for quite a while as well, wasn't he? He's a fantastic rider to watch when he's on form. We've got a question from Oliver Higby, who's asking, are there World Tour points available for this series?
No, not World Tour points, because this race is not a part of the World Tour. However, it is held under UCI regulations. This Hammer Series has been given a classification of 2.1, I believe, so there will be points counting towards the UCI Europe Tour and the overall rankings in that classification. But no, not part of the World Tour as things stand at the moment. This is the winning team from yesterday's sprint stage, Trek Segafredo, who didn't pick up any points on day one on the climb, making amends yesterday by winning the sprint. However, it wasn't enough for them to start in the second tier of riders, which are the teams who are going for the overall Hammer Series win. They set off first from the second group, which we've seen finish just a few moments ago, and they crossed the line behind Quick Step Floors, so they lost their 39-second advantage and an extra 4 seconds. John, any other comments of note coming in underneath the live videos?
We've got one here from Asda. Why do they only use a disc wheel in the rear?
That's an interesting one. Do you want to answer that, Lasty? Oh, Lasty's on Doritos. I'll do that for him. The reason that they aren't using disc wheels on the front is purely from a bike handling perspective. So actually, if you look on the track at the Team Pursuit and some of the other events that they do there, they will use a disc wheel on the front because the air is completely still inside the track, and so handling from that point of view is not going to be a problem. However, as soon as you get out onto the open road, if there's any kind of wind coming from the side, even if it's only 5 or 10 kilometers per hour, that wind coming from the side hitting a disc wheel on your front wheel is going to really affect the steering, especially when you're down in the bar extensions in your time trial position. So it's just simply too dangerous to use a disc wheel on the front, even though it would be more aerodynamic.
It's really rare to actually see. I think the last time I remember seeing a rider in a race on the road using a front disc wheel was the London 2012 Olympic time trial, where there was an Australian rider in the women's race, don't remember who it was, who was using a disc wheel in the front as well.
Yeah, I think Marco Pinotti might have used one at the Italian National Time Trial Championships many years ago when it was completely still out there. There was very little wind or no wind at all, and he decided to go for that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but certainly one rider at the Italian National Championships I have seen in pictures use a disc wheel at the front as well. Right, Team Sky, lastly, they are lining up. Let's remind everybody of their lineup of 5 riders for today. We've got John Dibben, who we saw racing yesterday very successfully in the sprint. Owain Doull, who is the Olympic champion, you saw just a few moments ago in the team briefing. He hasn't started or competed for the last 2 days. They've flown him in especially as a very fresh rider for today's chase. Their team is rounded out by Theo Geoghegan-Hart, who was instrumental in their 3rd place on day 1. We've also got Danny van Poppel, the Dutch sprinter, as well as their Italian sprinter Elia Viviani, who said that yesterday was very, very hard indeed. So a strong 5-man team, and they will hope to keep their advantage over Team Sunweb out there on the road and crown themselves the inaugural Hammer Series champions.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see exactly who does that. Definitely. My money's on Team Sky, actually, Dan. Well, my money isn't on Team Sky, but if I was betting on this, I'd go for Team Sky.
I am going to find it hard to see any team catching Team Sky. But what we hope for, lastly, is that Sunweb do close that 32-second gap, and we've got a real drag race really to the finish line. But it is going to be very hard for them.
Sunweb, of course, are not racing with their very recent Giro d'Italia winner and local favourite for the Hammer Series, Tom Dumoulin, who raced the first stage, but is probably, fair enough, is really quite tired and has other things to do.
Right, we've got 2 minutes left now until Team Sky will start their 45.7 kilometre team time trial chase. So let's hook over to John once again and see what else has been going on amongst you viewers.
Yeah, there's a few people who've asked really about who is the strongest team in this team time trial this afternoon. My pick actually is Orica Scott. They've got 5 extremely strong riders. Luke Durbridge, Turbo Durbo, the name says enough really, doesn't it? Alexander Edmondson, again another very accomplished rider, especially on the track. Matthew Heyman, Paris-Roubaix winner, domestique superb, so he can really, really ride fast for a long period of time. Michael Hepburn and Roger Kluger. I mean, that's a real strong setup, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if this was a normal stage and they were just going for the stage victory, they'd definitely be right up there with the favourites to take the stage. However, they set off 7th out of these 8 teams, and they've got a 2-minute and 2-second advantage, or disadvantage, should I say, to try and make up over Team Sky, and that, lastly, is not going to be easy at all, is it, to close that down?
Certainly not, certainly not. Again, we can see the riders lining up in the non-aero helmets provided by their team sponsors, so Team Sky are in their Casque Protones there. You can see Theo Geoghegan-Hart speaking with John Dibben, trying to get some last minute, I guess, who's going to lead the team out, that sort of thing.
Yeah, they will decide, won't they, which of the riders will be doing the first turn on the front. So across this 5, it's either the rider on the far right or the rider on the far left who will start off ever so slightly faster than the others, and they'll quickly be trying to get into that single line formation. From that point onwards, they will be taking turns of in the region of 15 to 30 seconds each on the front, depending on how strong they are feeling, and trying to keep that pace as high as they possibly can. What was the average speed for Quick Step Floors at the end of the first race? Has anyone worked things out, or is it on the Velon website? We'll try and find that out for you fairly shortly. It'll be interesting to see whether Team Sky, or indeed any of the other teams here in Group 2, can better that average speed and therefore make a quicker time over this course. Right then, how long have we got before the start of the race? For the second group of 8 teams, it should be any moment now where these 5 riders will get the second group of 8 out there on the road. 32 seconds before the second team just behind them, Team Sunweb, will follow Team Sky. 28 seconds separate Sunweb from Team Minipo Vini Fantini. Then to 4th place Lotto Soudal, only 12 seconds behind the Italian squad. So that could well be the first catch of the day. And you can see that they are all now in their individual formations.
So it was about 49 kilometres an hour. 49 to 50 kilometres an hour.
Not bad. Slightly slower than some of the laps yesterday, but I guess given that there are quite a few corners out there on the course, and let's not forget the weather was a lot worse for Group 1, who we've already seen, than it is out there now. As you can see, the sun has started to come out. It's dried up all of the rain which came down on the first group of teams. 1 second and Team Sky are off. Could they become the first ever champions of a Hammer Series event?
I think so. Let us know what you think down in the comments.
Yeah, give us your comments. Who do you think is going to win the Hammer Series for the very first time? Will it be Team Sky, or will somebody else upset the British squad and come at them from behind?
I'm not surprised Sinkeldam couldn't finish yesterday. Look at his arms and his knee.
Yeah, he's taken a lot of skin off. I mean, in the recap of the first 2 days, which we saw a few moments ago, he had a lot of blood coming down his elbows and his knees, and he's fully wrapped up there. And that's going to be an uncomfortable team time trial for Sinkeldam, isn't it?
He's got to go on the elbow pads on his extensions.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not going to be very comfortable.
The surprise of the weekend so far for me, well, I think for everyone, Nippo Vini Fantini.
Yeah, we've got 5 riders for each team lining up. So Nippo Vini Fantini with number 141 Marco Canolo. They've got Damiano Cunego as well, a former winner of the Giro d'Italia about 13 years ago. Second from the right on your screen. Filosi, who was of course very instrumental in picking up all their points on the first day on the climb. Kobayashi, as well as Uchima, so a couple of riders finishing that team off. Hirko Lotto Sudal, just 12 seconds, as I said, separating those two teams.
I think that will be a quick catch.
Yeah.
Especially with the team car in a 12-second gap that had never happened in a normal road race.
No, that's...
What's the gap? What gap does it need to be, actually, Dan?
Well, looking at the first race, I decided that it was around about 30 seconds. When it came underneath that point, they took out the team cars between the two teams. So I reckon it's 30 seconds. So strange, actually, as you said, in some ways, that they put a team car between two teams separated by just 12 seconds out there on the road. Here is the 6th team out there, so only 2 more to go after Cannondale Drapac. They are starting 1 minute and 49 seconds, as you can see on your screen, behind Team Sky. Orica Scott up next. There's only 13 seconds between those two teams, so they'll be getting going right now. Luke Durbridge leading them off, number 52. And finally, in just a few moments' time, Team Lotto NL Jumbo will be rounding out our last 8 teams on the road. Let's see whether they can make any inroads into the other teams out there today. Well, that's it then, Lusty. All of the 16 teams have at least started their race. We've got 8 teams out there on our circuit right now. Let's just remind you, they are doing 3 laps of a 14.9 kilometre circuit. Pretty similar to yesterday's sprint circuit, in fact, with an extra little loop added in to increase that distance. Those 3 laps will give them an overall distance of 45.7 kilometres. Our leading team from the first group, Quick Step Floors, taking around about 52 minutes to cover that, so it has been pretty fast. 5 riders from each team. It's the 4th rider across the line who will count, and Team Sky will be very hopeful that they don't get the same bad luck which we saw for Team BMC in the first round.
Yeah, certainly not. Cycling Games actually sent me a really cool tweet. Marcel Kittel Marcel Seberg, sorry, rather, forgive me, having a go on the little pump track at the Hammer Series finish centre on his time trial bike.
Wow.
Getting in some practice in for the corners later on.
Yeah. Well, here is Team Sky. That looks to me like
Viviani,
it is Viviani, yeah, riding on the front now. This is a good insight, isn't it, into how aerodynamic their tuck is on the time trial bikes, because Viviani just on the wheel of one of his teammates who's got a rearward facing GoPro. So we didn't see any of this onboard footage from the first group, but yeah, just behind. In the second group, we've got some onboard footage for you, and that gives you a really good indication as to what it's like to do a team time trial, just how close the riders are to each other out there on the bikes.
And just how difficult and uncomfortable those aero positions must be to maintain for such a long period of time. The riders have to do a lot of training to get into that sort of shape, don't they?
Yeah, they most certainly do. And the best riders in these disciplines, and the individual time trial and the team time trial, will spend quite a significant amount of their training time, so a couple of rides per week, out on the time trial bike, because it is a very different feeling, Lars, isn't it, to going out on your road bike in terms of the position and trying to get out a similar amount of power in an aerodynamic tuck like they are on a time trial bike.
Yeah, well, you know far better than me, Dan. So when you were racing for the Cervelo test team, what sort of percentage of training and what sort of training would you do on a time trial bike just to get used to it? As you can see, the rearward facing camera on Sinkeldam's bike now. Like
many riders who weren't particularly good at individual time trialling, I didn't do very much training on my time trial bike. I did occasionally try and do an evening 10 or 25 as training, which you could ride out to, that being 10 miles or 25 miles, which is something that's very common back here in the UK for riders to do. So I did occasionally do that, but I didn't spend enough time on my time trial bike, which was part of the problem as to why I wasn't very good at it.
Okay, so we've got the first catch coming up. I guess kind of as we predicted in a way. It's a bit of a shame it's Lotto Soudal coming right up on Nippo Vini Fantini. They're almost going by them like they're standing still there, aren't they?
Yeah, interestingly, Nippo Vini Fantini, the first team we've seen today who were like in a double line formation as opposed to that single line fluid formation which we've seen for a lot of the other teams out there today. Yeah, not a surprise, we predicted that Lotto Soudal would probably make the first catch of the day, but they've still got 40 seconds between themselves and the next team that in front of them out on the road there right now, which is Team Sunweb. That was the difference between those two teams at the start.
Nippo Vini Fantini doing a really good job of getting in the draft there of Lotto Soudal. Not technically according to the rules, the commissaire's about to tell them that now, but they have really got right up there. So Sunweb have closed the gap on Team Sky by 8 seconds. We're about 4k into it.
Wow.
So they've really shut that down.
Yeah, so 24 seconds the difference between those two teams out there on the road. Let's go through who Sunweb have opted for on today's chase. They've got Leonard Kamner, the young climber that we saw up there with Tom Dumoulin for a few parts of the first stage, the climbing stage back on Friday. Raymond Sinkeldam, who was the guy very much bandaged up after crashing out of yesterday's sprint stage. He is number 93. They've got the experienced lead-out train Albert Timmer, number 94. Lead-out train rider, the Dutch rider. Zico Vaten's number 95. And finally, the huge sprinter, Max Walscheid, who you can see there in second position right now. Just under 2 minutes tall, number 96 on his back. He really is a very big guy to be a cyclist.
Yeah, I think his teammates will probably actually quite enjoy sitting behind him. They won't be.
Yeah, that is the wheel to be on, isn't it? Right, well, as this second group settles into their rhythm and settles into their chase, we shall cut across to Social John to find out what you've been saying underneath the videos.
So James Tiller asks, excuse me, this would be more exciting with drafting, and if it wasn't the fourth rider, but the second or third. Interesting, actually, then, because you could really use up those stronger riders. However, I think that what's really interesting is actually the dynamic of having a team time trial and having all of those riders together. It makes it more respectable than having just two riders from a squad left at the end. And it really actually does then depend on the strength of the team. What are your thoughts on that, Ben?
It's an interesting. I don't even know what my thoughts are really. It's so new to everybody, isn't it? This whole concept of every single stage, including today's chase, that I think everyone's going to be basically learning as they go along, really, aren't they? And deciding before the next Hammer Series what their mistakes were, what they would do differently the next time through. The UCI commissaire here looking very closely at Team Nippo Vini Fantini, who you can imagine must be benefiting from the slipstream of Lotto Soudal, given how quickly they caught them lastly and how fast they went past the Italian squad. You'd imagine that by now, under normal circumstances, if they hadn't got any advantage from slipstreaming, they'd already be, what, 15 seconds behind the Belgian squad?
Yeah, it's difficult to see how they wouldn't, I don't think we should suggest that they are intending to use it to their advantage. It's just it's very difficult in their position to not take an advantage because they want to continue to ride, they want to continue to get the best time that they possibly can. A win is going to be stretching it for them, but so they don't want to sit up and lose loads of seconds just to not draft.
Right, well, those are two groups that are very close out there on the road at the moment. Here's some coverage of Team Sky, who set out first of the second group today, courtesy of the fact that over the first 2 days, the climb and the sprint, they had the best aggregate positions. So they finished third, I think it was, on day one and fourth yesterday, giving them an aggregate position of 7 when you add the two positions up. That meant they started off first. Team Sunweb, the second best from the first 2 days, second place on the road today, but they are closing the gap according to the graphic that we saw a few moments ago on Team Sky. And it will be motivating, won't it, Lasty? Team Sky, as you can see, have got a completely clean road in front of them. They're not chasing anything, but behind Team Sunweb will not only be able to see the riders, but also Team Sky's car just behind them. They will be able to sense, if they are indeed closing the gap and that graphic is correct, they will be able to sense that they're closing the gap, and that will give them extra motivation.
Owen Dool just put a huge turn in that really actually stretched the team out. Apparently, Sunweb have closed the gap by just over 10 seconds, and on the longest straights now have them in sight, which I'm not sure. Oh yeah, I guess they do technically have them in sight there. It's a dead straight road.
Yeah, we'll get the graphic back up for you as soon as we possibly can. It's not something we can do ourselves here at GCN. We are very much in the hands of the host broadcasters when it comes to putting graphics up on the screen. So forgive us, we don't have any control over that, but we could get traditional clocks out last and actually time that if we get a long shot. This is that left-hand turn which they make, which puts them into crosswinds, as you can see, coming from the left, and that's going to make this part of the course very hard indeed.
Where are we going to time them down? I've got the clock out.
Oh, well, let's do it to the next corner, but we also will have to hope that we get a shot of both teams going through the corner on our screens in order to be able to time the difference between the two. There is Team Sunweb. They have got Team Sky still in their sights, but I would hazard a guess that is still in the region of the 30 seconds that they started off behind the British squad. I don't think that's closed particularly much.
I think it may have closed a little more than that. So we've got Lotto Soudal on the on-screen graphic.
Oh right, so
25 seconds.
Having a look on the Velon live data app, we can see that the differential between them out on the road is 25 seconds from Team Sunweb to Team Sky. Lotto Soudal at 1 minute and 2 seconds to the British squad, so they have also closed by 10 seconds on them. So it is getting quite close out there on the road. I wonder if Team Sky have gone with their traditional kind of negative split and decided to start off relatively conservatively with the aim of increasing the power and therefore the speed over the second half of the chase today.
Okay, Alfie Cycle says, finished all my homework. Dan, do I need an education or should I just keep running my bike? I think you need an education, Alfie. You didn't address it to me, but
yeah. Well, we've got what, 40 minutes to go.
Yeah.
So it depends how long it is until your exams.
Yeah. Watch the race.
Alfie also asked, what's that white piece of paper that riders put on their noses?
Oh, looks like a plaster.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called.
Breathe Right.
Breathe Right strips.
Breathe Right nasal strips.
Yeah. I
You
think
see
the
loads of
science is
athletes
still
have them,
out
don't
on them, isn't it? Surely.
Well, but the science of the placebo effect is so well proven that I guess if they believe that it is making them faster, there's a benefit to them and we'll just leave them to
Oh,
it.
forgot to get my timer out for the
Could
corner.
also help with snoring as well.
We've missed it, okay.
Timer. Right, let's start now. Yeah, the Breathe Right strips actually have some metal inside the strip, which is basically there to kind of spring that plaster in effect out.
Really?
and increase the size of your nostrils.
Why don't they have a nose piercing and a bit of metal if they want to do that?
Well, so you can intake.
Like, actually stretch them a bit more.
What you're suggesting intaking air from more.
Because
more
actually,
holes than
Nino
you've got.
Schurter did that. So Nino Schurter, the mountain bike world champion, I believe, had surgery on his
Really?
sinuses. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, okay. So he had problems with his sinuses.
Yeah.
It wasn't a kind of Ed Clancy proposition where they were thinking about breaking his collarbones and making his shoulders not quite as wide as they were.
I didn't know they were doing that. James Gordon says the best part of GCN's coverage of the Hammer Series is the fairly regular sound of bottles of beer being opened. You can't take the blame for that one, Dan. That was me. But
No, Larsy's been
not
demanding more bottles of beer. Look at this though.
One bottle.
4 teams in very close proximity out
This
there
is going to be carnage.
on the road. It's the final 4 teams, or latter 4 teams, who started off from Group 2. So they're still in the same formation at which they started. Movistar, Cannondale Drapac, Orica Scott and Team Lotto NL Yombo. The difference between those last 4 teams as they started out was 47 seconds, but that is very much closer now. And it is
22 seconds between Sky and Sunweb. Now we didn't even need
21.
your clock, Dan.
21 seconds, so that is coming down. That is very good news for the excitement of this final stage. And I wasn't expecting that. They've got some decent riders for the team time trial and the chase today. Have Team Sky, have Team Sunweb set out a little bit too quickly to try and make that catch, or have they got enough left in the bank that they can continue to make inroads into the initial 32-second deficit that they had on Team Sky? This is very interesting indeed.
I like how Sunweb have to make sure that Welshide, who is, like you said, almost 2 metres tall, sits behind one of his teammates who's at least 180 centimetres tall, just so that he doesn't. He actually gets a bit of shelter. Because if he was behind like someone of average height, he'd just almost gain no benefit there.
Yeah, in all seriousness, that is a factor in terms of, you know, when the teams are deciding the order of their riders in a team time trial, they will do it on kind of gradual high order often, won't they? So that the rider, as you said, it's a huge rider is not behind a very small rider, etc. But it is one of the dynamics which does come into play when it comes to the tactics of a team time trial. But they would have never had these tactics to take into account before. Movistar still at the front. Let's not forget they've got Alex Dowsett, a former world hour record holder. It's he who's on the front
there, putting a big turn.
At the moment, they've got a couple of pure climbers almost though, and they are now being caught by Orica Scott, who have overtaken the Cannondale Drapac squad out there on the road.
They are flying, aren't they?
You speculated, both you last year as well as John Cannings, that Orica Scott have got an incredibly strong team for today's chase, and that is coming true already, isn't it? They've overtaken Cannondale Drapac, but Team Lotto NL Jumbo, they've closed down on both the teams, both of them as well. As they start at 2 minutes and 16 seconds, Team Lotto NL Jumbo, 14 seconds behind Orica Scott. And they're making inroads into that gap as well.
Yeah, so they've got Luke Durbridge, Alexander Edmondson, Matthew Heyman, former Paris-Roubaix winner, Michael Hepburn and Roger Kluger. And Durbridge, Edmondson and Hepburn must all surely have been under 4 minutes in a team pursuit on the track. So this is exactly their sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little bit longer, but it does bear some similarities in terms of kind of the power that you need to be putting out on the front. And indeed the recovery, whilst you're still putting out a very good power on the wheels in the team behind, and much more closely resembling the numbers between a team pursuit on the track, which is 4 riders of course, and the 5 riders that they've got out there today. It's the 4th rider across the line that counts, but as we saw in the first race today, where BMC had all sorts of problems, you can't afford to have a tactic which sees one rider going deep early and then stopping on the side of the road having done their job for the day, because if you have more bad luck after that, you're going to be in some serious trouble.
You are. T. Simchak has asked, should I quit my job and watch GCN videos all day?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
John says yes.
Yeah. No. Don't take any notice of them.
Get a job where you can watch GCN videos all day.
Yeah, we've got all evening to watch them as well. Right, 30.2 kilometres to go, Larsie. So that means that Team Sky... Wow! Those 4 teams coming together completely now. So Orica Scott have now overtaken the Movistar squad, as have Cannondale Drapac. But they've both swung over to the right-hand side of the road, so we've pretty much got a group of 20 riders out there now.
Commissaire's coming up to sort the situation out.
What can you do though, Lasty? I mean, when 4 teams are next to each other on the road like that, there's not really a situation where you aren't slipstreaming somebody in front of you.
No, I mean, fair enough, the riders are going to kind of want to sit on the wheel, aren't they?
Right, well, as Team Sky come across the lap for the first time out of 3, I'm going to get my timer ready, stopwatch ready, and start that as Team Sky cross the line. Let's not forget they started with a 32-second advantage over Team Sunweb when they began around about 20 minutes ago. Starting that off now, so we'll see whether that difference is any different now between those first 2 teams out there on the road. But the most exciting part at the moment is the battle between 5th and 8th out there on the road. You can see in the distance there, Lotto Soudal now 3rd on the road right now. Let's see what the gap is. It's already up to 20 seconds to Team Sunweb. They stopped the clock at 24. So they started.
I think Lotto Soudal have really shut the gap on them as well.
Well, we'll keep the clock running. Lotto Soudal starting at 1 minute and 12 seconds behind Team Sky. They, as you can see, have already overtaken the squad that started 12 seconds in front of them, Nippo Vini Fantini. But actually,
this is going to come back together. We're going to have 6 teams.
Well, could have 8. Could have 8. Let's hope for the best, Larty. You can see that huge group of 20 riders from 4 different teams in the back straight now, coming up towards the finish. Let's not forget that there's 2 minutes and 16 seconds difference between the first and the last teams off today, and that's going to be almost a minute's going to have been cut out.
So Lotto Soudal have shut the gap by about 10 seconds to Team Sky there. Nippo Vini Fantini have probably lost a similar amount. They've also lost, they've lost 10 or so seconds.
Right, well, let's see what this big group are at though when they cross the line, because it's going to be well inside the 2 minutes and 16 seconds, which separated all 8 teams when they started out around about 18 minutes ago. In fact, here they come now. Orica Scots, the best of those. Lotto NL Jumbo, 1 minute and 29 seconds behind Team Sky. They started off 2 minutes and 16 seconds behind them, so they've actually managed to close in the region of 45 seconds to Team Sky in just one lap.
Honestly, I would not want to be trying to... Their teammates must not really like sitting on Jos van Endem's wheel when he's riding his 58
but I was going to say,
course.
They've got a decent team, very much so, haven't they, for the chase today, have Lotto NL Jumbo. They had a lot of work to do because they did start off last out of the second 8 teams, but Victor Campenaerts, as well as asking Carlin for a date during the time trial of the Giro d'Italia. He is also currently the Belgian national champion. We'll get through the rest of their squad shortly. There's confirmation of the standings after the first lap. 24 seconds back to Team
together, aren't we? Or 6 teams together at least by the end of the lap.
But great that all 8 teams are separated by just 92 seconds now, because that did start off at 136 seconds. So that's closed quite significantly. They've got Campenaerts, the Belgian champion. Lotto NL Jumbo have also got Lars Boom, who's very quick when it comes to an individual time trial, especially on the flat as well. They've got Jos van Emden, who you just mentioned last year as the winner of the final day's time trial into Milan at the Giro d'Italia exactly 1 week ago. Robert Wagner is a German rider who's a former national champion on the road, who's a decent time trialist as well. And finally, Tom Laser, who came very close to winning the World Championships after a late attack in Qatar last year on the road. They're all kind of riding together, and this actually, it also goes back to the fact that the last rider in the team will be putting out more rider than the second last rider in the team. They've seen that on the team pursuit, haven't they? That there's actually some kind of benefit to having a rider or a vehicle tracking just behind you, in terms of it does reduce the amount of power that you have to put out. So given that we've got 4 teams closely together at the back there, it could well play a part in the actual speed they're going for a given power.
Definitely. I think the incentive effect is huge as well. Especially in sight, because they say outside out of mind, don't they? But insight in mind, and these teams that are racing more closely together, I think, will be going significantly faster.
So what do we have out on the road? It's about 30 seconds, isn't it, between Lotto Soudal and the team that we've just been watching, which is the German squad, Team Sunweb, formerly Giant Alpecin, of course. They are on the race radios. They've got constant contact from the team cars behind and the sports directors as to exactly what the situation is out on the road. But they almost, as you said last, they don't kind of need it, because they can see the distance between themselves and the leading team, which is still Team Sky, as they come up towards the halfway point of this chase. Not long now, just under half an hour in fact, before we can crown the first ever winners of the Hammer Chase.
This is fascinating stuff. We've got a question in from Victor, who is asking, why didn't they just start with 2-minute gaps between the teams and take the finish time to reduce this slipstreaming happening? I think the answer, Victor, is because this slipstreaming in this race format is absolutely fascinating to watch.
Yeah, they wanted to change the format of bicycle racing to what we have all known for over 100 years now. This is all about the teams. This is not about individual riders. So despite the fact that Carlos Betancourt on day 1 was instrumental really in getting his team Movistar to win that day, it isn't about Carlos Betancourt, it's about Team Movistar, and that is the way that this series has been devised. The first team across the line from this group here will be deemed the winners, and it couldn't really get more simple than that. It's the 4th rider across the line from that team who will stop the clock. So if we do get a scenario, and it looks like we could do, if we do get a scenario where more than one team is coming up towards the line, we could in fact get a sprint finish amongst those 2 teams, and then we've just got to see who is the best placed 4th rider out of the 2 of them. Right, with just under half of this final chase done, John, what are people now saying in the comment section down below?
Shot it down to 20 seconds as well.
We've got the wannabe racer. He's saying this chaos is amazing, which we can agree with. Also, we've got a question here. Why does the lead rider swing off so far instead of staying in a tight pace line?
That's an interesting one, and I have no idea as to the reasoning behind that. I would have thought it would be more advisable from an aerodynamics point of view to stay very close to your team as they come past. Certainly when you're in a double line formation, it is much better to not have a channel of air going between the two sets of riders if you're doing a chain gang, for example. The UCI commissaires not being too stringent, you have to say, lastly, when it comes to stopping riders and teams from slipstreaming each other.
So we've got Team Sky, followed by Team Sunweb, followed by the peloton, who are slowly reeling this back. We're going to see the teams going through and off, each taking a turn at the front. No, maybe not. There is a no drafting rule in force.
Yeah, Brand Tanking of Lotto NL Jumbo, he's actually commented peloton team time trial. So he's watching this from his armchair, I think, at home.
Cannondale Drapac have got bored. They're going to try and throw in an attack here. It's not particularly subtle. There are 5 of them.
It's very interesting, isn't it? Because it takes such an enormous power differential to actually ride at a faster speed than the other teams out there. And to do that for any length of time, you're going to go into the red and basically just get caught again by the team who are tracking you.
Is there perhaps a kind of a stance here where teams, if a team has been overtaken, they should cede the line to the team which has overtaken them? Because teams like Cannondale Drapac and Movistar aren't doing that here. They are actually attacking around the 2 faster teams, who are Movistar, oh no, not Movistar, Lotto NL Jumbo and Orica Bike Exchange. Orica Scott.
Well, I mean, I'm surprised that the commissaire, given that there is a no drafting rule here, isn't being more stringent with the teams and saying, look, you can't ride behind the other teams.
There we go, yeah, they're all waving. Which waving isn't very aerodynamic.
I mean, once you get, what, 5 teams that we have together at that point? I think Nippo Vini Fantini joined the fun in effect as well. Once you've got 5 teams, I mean, look how narrow the road is.
No, it's 6 teams. It's Nippo Vini Fantini, Lotto Soudal, Movistar, Cannondale Drapac, Orica Scott, and NL
I thought Lotto Soudal was still in front of them. Nevertheless, we have at least 5 teams together out there.
Dodgy for Sky, they ran that one close.
Yeah, in a group at the moment, and you just can't fit 5 teams side by side on the road without having some kind of benefit to slipstreaming. And as soon as you have a benefit of slipstreaming, you're saving energy, which you can then use. If a team starts accelerating, you've got a bit more left in reserve to follow that acceleration. So it's very intriguing indeed. 19 seconds now the gap between Team Sky, who set off first.
And it's the motorbike commissaires, I'm not sure, can make this much easier by going outside of it.
I think they're actually joining in.
Yeah, they're also giving some slipstreaming advantage to some of the riders as well.
There's nothing the riders can do in this situation. They have to race, and they have to race what's in front of them.
I can't wait to see them come across the finish line in that in the peloton.
Look at this. We've got someone sent a screenshot.
And what's the normal distance that the riders have to leave when they get past?
Good question, John.
I don't know whether there's a distance, but normally in an individual time trial, because we've never really seen this in a team time trial because of the normal 5-minute gaps that you have between the teams. It's very rarely closed, if ever. In an individual time trial, the commissaire will normally just ask them to go to the other side of the road so that in front of them they haven't got any advantage of being out of the wind due to the rider in front. But when you've got 5 teams next to each other on roads like this, what choice have you got? They're going to have to be behind each other. There's really no choice.
Now, do you think the director sportives of the teams will be getting communication from the race jury telling their riders to drop back?
But then what do the riders do?
Just be ignoring, do you think,
it's a race. Why should they slow down?
Right, well, whilst we wait to see whether Team Sunweb can catch Team Sky, and it looks like they might be able to do that job. Just 18 seconds now, so they've closed 14 seconds so far.
Here we go, it's ordering out. So they've caught Lotto Soudal.
Yeah, they've now caught Lotto Soudal. So we've now got 6 teams behind our leading 2 individual teams out there on the road. It is absolutely carnage out there.
We hoped for some close racing.
Yeah, we hope for some close racing. I didn't expect that lastly, I have to say. No. I was not expecting to see 6 teams
John Dibben's in
together.
trouble here with Team Sky. He's been kind of, each time he's dropped back, he's lost a couple of lengths. He doesn't look as comfortable as you'd expect. Dibben, who of course won the time trial at Recent Tour of California.
I was going to say, it's a surprise to see Dibben on the limit
swinging a little bit there. Sky taking advantage of the whole road, which is where this peloton situation is going to get particularly interesting.
Yeah, he's missing some turns now, Dibben, and that is a surprise because, as you said, a surprise but welcome performance from Dibben at the individual time trial at the Tour of California.
Dibben is going to have to drop back.
Yeah.
Leaving his teammates without a puncture plan.
Well, I don't think he'll drop back. He'll just miss a few turns, won't he? And he'll hope that in just sitting on his teammates for a little while, he can recover. But even if he is dropped, he's got a peloton to sit on and recover from, recover with, just around about a minute down the road.
Back to the team car situation. safe to say Movistar, Orica Scott and Sutton looking a little bit confused. Movistar are laughing about the situation back in the team cars actually.
Right, well, before we get any more excitement, let's answer a few more of the viewers' questions. Silly question, but do radios in their helmets? Do they have radios in their helmets? We've been asked. Yes, they have got communication and race radios in their ears, so they will be able to get time gaps from the sports directors in the team cars behind. Andy Paintino. Most of these roads look wide enough, maybe lane off the roads which are wide, and each for their own on the narrower bits. That's fine to kind of do a swimming style lane in terms of when you've got head or a tailwind or no wind, but as soon as you have a crosswind, the teams are going to be fanned across the road rather than in a single line formation directly down the road.
Yeah, this is. I hope they pan back to the peloton on the narrower roads. 17
seconds now, just 19 kilometres to go. So Team Sunweb need in the region of 1 second per kilometre out of Team Sky. And the closer they get to Team Sky's car behind their team, the more benefit they're going to be getting from slipstreaming as well. I don't think they're quite close enough to gain any kind of advantage at the moment, but shortly they will be, and at that point the catch could happen very quickly indeed.
Then we pan back to the 16
Do you think
peloton.
we're going to see the peloton catch Team Sky?
I'd love to know what the difference is between the Orica Scott team at the front of this group and the Team Sky at the head of affairs. Excuse me.
Minute and 5, so.
It's a really good start. Still really good start, okay? Let's not get worried about all these riders.
So Hez Phillips said hopefully the Hammer Series will become an annual event. Love this series. We'd have to agree, Hez. We've absolutely loved live streaming.
Let's just do our time trial. There's nothing we can do about it. Let's just do our best time trial here.
Apologies, we can't personally hear what Matt Wilson of Team Orica Scott is saying on the radio there, but if you can hear him yourself, we have stayed quiet for that just in case. Apologies if you can't. We've got Tim Wellens, is that? Number 35. Sorry, Lewis Viveka. He's ended up on the back wheels of Team Nippo Vinny Fantini at the moment. The UCI commissary is saying, look, you need to get out of the wheels. Oh, it looks like John Dibben is done. Number 82.
Told you.
John Dibben has been in trouble for a few kilometres now, and his day is done. He can no longer contribute to the pace setting for Team Sky, and that is going to give Team Sunweb increased confidence. They've cut a couple more seconds out of the time gap to Team Sky, and when they look in front of themselves now, lastly, they are going to see that one of the Team Sky riders has been dropped and that they will be down to 4, and that's going to give them renewed motivation to keep pressing on.
Maybe Dibben's just dropping back to the peloton.
His job's done.
I think Team Sky, of course, if they have the BMC nightmare, which does seem incredibly unlikely, they are in a lot of trouble, for want of a better description.
Yeah.
Dibben going for the bike lane there. Good use of the Dutch road system.
15 seconds in the gap with 17 kilometres still to go, so less than a second per kilometre is what they need now. Orica Scott, though, are absolutely flying. Let's not forget, they started 2 minutes and 2 seconds behind Team Sky, so if that has come underneath the minute now, it does give them a small hope of still winning the Hammer Series race on the day. That would be quite incredible.
That would be amazing. So we get a lot of questions down here about the next round and the new locations for the Hammer Series. I think people have been so captivated by the format that they want to see the next race as soon as possible. So am I correct in thinking it's returning to Limburg next year? So Limburg in the Netherlands where we're racing now, but it's also, there is an extra round at the Tour de Fjords in Norway, which is Lillehammer, correct?
Yeah, Tour de Fjord up in Norway, that will be hosting a round of this Hammer Series next year, so there's at least 2 taking place next year, and I understand from the organisers that they are hoping to cement some more deals in the very near future, so it could be 2, it could be anything up to 4 or 5 rounds of the Hammer Series next year, which is going to make the calendar quite interesting, isn't it? It's already quite packed full of races on the UCI World Tour and indeed the European Tour, so they're going to have to find a few spare weekends so that the riders can compete in the various rounds of the Hammer Series.
Is this race so different though? Do you think when it becomes a fixture the teams may start having almost Hammer Series riders?
Yeah,
because it's significantly shorter.
Carlos Betancourt, his value to teams could be going through the roof, couldn't it, given his performance on the opening day of the climb in the Hammer Series. So, well, let's wait and see. It's been very interesting and intriguing to watch the first 3 days in the first Hammer Series unfolding. I thought that Team Sky had kind of cracked Sunweb for a few moments there. It went back up to 18 seconds for a fleeting moment. You see there, Surveys Knaven now talking to his riders.
You can. Michael Hutchinson, who is a legendary British time trialist, has commented in quite an understated way, a trifle congested.
Right, what is happening in the comments, Mr. John Cannings?
A lot of people just purely bemused by the peloton situation.
I'm loving it.
Yeah, I mean, I am too. I've never seen this ever.
It's brilliant.
Ever. I've seen it actually on the track. I've seen
stuff.
team pursuits where teams have been caught and they've not known what to do and they've just ignored the commissaires. But this is really quite something. And I think we're going to see one mighty big sprint for the line, especially if they catch Team Sky, which is. I actually want that to happen. I want to see what's going to happen in that last 200-300 metres. How they're going to pan out.
Well, I guess there's probably a lot of viewers at home who are wondering why Team Sunweb at the end wouldn't just sprint and catch up with Team Sky. They are all very close to their limit. They are going at the absolute maximum that they can sustain for in the region of 50 minutes. If you have a quick look as they cross the line, Team Sky now, you will see that they are very much grimacing. They are very much on their limits. They can't really go that much faster. 17 seconds is the graphical
18
gap.
is the actual.
18 the actual gap, so it's holding steady now. They've closed 14 seconds, Team Sunweb, being led by Albert Timmer there on the front. They can't quite close the gap though to the British squad at the moment. Let's see though what the gap is back to the main peloton, as we are now calling it.
Timmer takes a really deep breath. Oh yeah, it is still the main peloton.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams still in contention here.
This is brilliant. I think this is what everyone wanted to see from the Hammer Series. This is fantastic close racing in a fascinating format, a new format. We've got Orica Scott leading. Lotto Soudal coming up on the inside ahead of the technical couple of corners after the finish. Ooh, that's interesting.
1 minute and 3 seconds between Team Sky
that's
and
a good
this
peloton
move behind. But yeah, Lotto Soudal
Hepburn does not look happy, does he? Yeah, Hepburn didn't look happy.
Well, it's going to make it very difficult to stay in your formation, isn't it?
Bunch cornering on TT bikes is...
They have managed to stay in formation though, haven't they? We've now got 5 riders from Lotto Soudal
Nippo, Vini, Fantini haven't. They're just chopping up the inside there.
Yeah, they've got 4 riders left, Nippo, Vini, Fantini, as have Team Movistar there at the back as well. But what, probably 28 riders still left in basically a big group, and they've really got no option but to slipstream as they come through the corners.
Yeah, I think this is fascinating. I want to know your predictions. Let us know them down in the comments on Facebook or YouTube. And don't forget to keep sharing this one. Dan, on Team Sky, I'm looking at the team there. Theo Gegenhardt did look like he was struggling at some points during that lap as well. So could we go down? Oh, we've got more close-ups to the peloton. But do you think that Sky may need to slow down to make sure they only have they maintain on 4 riders?
Well, a chance now, I guess, as we recap the opening part of the final round here. To discuss that. Of course, they can only ride as fast as their slowest rider is capable of doing so now, because it is the 4th rider across the line that counts. If you drop one of your riders at the point at which Team Sky are at now, when they've just got 4 remaining, then they're going to have to wait for him, just as we saw with Team BMC with all their punctures in the first round. John Dibben just struggling to hold on there to his teammates, and that is going to mean that they've got more work to do each on the front, and Team Sunweb, interestingly, still with 5 riders out there on the road at the moment. So will they be able to close it down? 12 seconds is the gap on your screen right now, despite this being well, we're back to live pictures now, aren't we?
I told you he's struggling.
Yeah, he is struggling, you're right. So Theo Gegenhardt, he's done a lot over the last couple of days, but in fact that was Owen Dool at the back, so there's more than one rider struggling with the pace there at the moment. So 12 seconds the gap. I think they're going to close that down before the finish.
Yeah, so Team Sky have actually tweeted it's a real nail biter with 1 lap to go. We're still 18 seconds ahead of the team chasing Team Somewhere. Keep going, boys. # Hammer Series, hammer emoji.
Well, just 11.6 kilometres to go, but as we pan out from
this
the
is going to be so
here,
close.
looks more than 12. 11 seconds is what it's being given at. I guess with the speeds that they're going, that gap on the road
it would take me more than 11 seconds.
That would be a 30-second gap for us, wouldn't it? But yeah, 12 seconds is the gap that they are being given, and they can very much see the Team Sky car just in front of them now, Team Sunweb. They know now that they've got an amazing chance of taking the victory at the inaugural Hammer Series here in Limburg, which would be quite phenomenal. Exactly the type of racing that we wanted to see in this chase format on the last day.
Oh, it's 10 seconds, 11 seconds.
Now guys, do you think if we have a bunch sprint situation with the peloton of teams there, they'll be regretting not choosing to ride road bikes today? Or at least drop handlebars.
We'd never have got to the bunch sprint situation without TT bikes, surely.
Yeah, and what's the most effective way in terms of your speed at the end? Do you stay on the bar extensions in your aero position, or do you go onto the sidebars where this guy is now and sprint out the saddle?
To be honest, Dan, sprinting and time trialing are definitely not my mastermind special subject, so I'm going to defer to your opinion on both of those. And you probably might have to defer to John.
No.
Oh, somewhere down to 4?
Well, for the first time, that gap is going to tick underneath the 10-second mark.
They've got to close it.
Yeah, I can't see anything but a closing of this gap really with the way things are going. Team Sky down to 4 riders. We've seen both Eindel and Theo Gegenhardt really on their limits, which is completely understandable given that it's just 5-man teams.
No, it's 5 men.
But let's take nothing away from Team Sunweb. They've ridden absolutely incredibly well so far.
They've paced it fantastically.
They have paced it well.
Paul Martins, who is of course a lot of NL Jumbo riders, tweeted, I guess the jury doesn't know how to handle that situation. Hashtag bunch riding, good hashtag, in a TTT, but really fun to watch. It is very fun to watch, and the jury just, well, not just the jury can't have prepared for it, there's actually no solution to it, because unless they say, you stop, you freewheel, they can't not have a bunch.
No, it's a very difficult one for them to implement, and although this is a new series, a brand new format with new organisers,
8 seconds
the commissaires are still from the UCI, who are only used to using the rules and implementing the rules for the races they've been used to for the last,
Team Sky
10
car
decades.
is being pulled out, 7 seconds, they're really closing it now, so it's Theo Gegenhardt on the front for Team Sky.
Well, this really
followed
is...
by Owain Doull, followed by Danny Van Poppel, followed by Elia Viviani. And Viviani is almost the only rider who looks comfortable there.
Yeah, wow.
Still looking incredibly smooth, but the other guys do look to be suffering.
And less than a minute now, back to the Orica Scott-led peloton. So 7 seconds to Team Sunweb. Yeah, Theo Gegenhardt has ridden incredibly well. He is a neo-pro, let's not forget. 3 of Team Sky's riders that are all British, John Dibben, Owain Doull and Theo Gegenhardt, all in their first years as professional riders in 2017. So they have ridden phenomenally well over the last couple of days and indeed on today's chase. But it is carnage back here in the peloton. We've still got 5 teams riding with each other, and that is now underneath the minute mark.
So Gegenhardt's come back from that crash as well.
Yeah, from an initial start lastly, where Team Sky had a 2 minute and 16-second advantage over the last team to set out, Team Lotto NL Jumbo. We've now got all 8 teams within a minute. That really is quite incredible.
It is. We've got some equipment questions coming in now again, especially from some of our newer viewers. So Nikolai Anderson asking, why do all the teams ride in normal race helmets, not TT helmets? And that is because due to the awareness that the riders need, so for teams around them, for the race vehicles, they felt that it was safer to have a helmet that didn't cover too much of their head, so that's why they've opted for normal race helmets over TT helmets. But it is still a time trial, albeit a team time trial, albeit perhaps a peloton team time trial for the 6 teams that aren't Team Sky or Team Sunweb, so they have opted for time trial bikes.
Wow, 5 seconds only now the gap between this team, Team Sky, and the next team on the road, Sunweb. And with just 7.9 kilometres to go, it really couldn't be any closer. We have no idea which team is going to win the inaugural Hammer Series round here in Limburg. I mean, will they carry their momentum once they get past? Will Team Sky's heads drop once they get caught by Team Sunweb? How much will they have left in terms of motivation to stay with Team Sunweb and then try and come back round them at the end if the German squad manages to go past the British squad?
Definitely. Well, there you go, Dan. My money's on Sunweb. What about you?
Yeah, I think, well, yeah, you can take it back because I think Sunweb too. Just poor bet, poor bet.
Okay, yeah, obvious bet. So we actually got a very nice comment from Brian McNamara here. He says, how about the GCN presenting format? I love it. Any chance of hosting the tour? I think the answer is probably not this year, Brian, but if you did want to tweet the Tour de France and ask them, we'd be very grateful. Leah Kirchman, who rides for the Sunweb women's team, said, let's go at Team Sunweb, getting a good sprint workout, cheering on the guys around the Hammer Series course.
Well, incidentally, Leah Kirchman actually made some pink themed Team Sunweb jerseyed cakes and biscuits for the riders this morning to give them extra motivation. And it seems as though it has been working for them because, well, it's still 5 seconds, but with 7 Ks to go, the momentum certainly seems to be with Team Sunweb at the moment. With those riders in sight, it's very... I would imagine it's a lot harder to crack when you can see them just in front of you than it is when you've just got an open road in front of you.
Can you imagine how happy Zico Waiton's number 95 at Sunweb was and said, when they said to it this morning, hey, you know what, you're ordering the team time trial, you sat behind the guy who's almost 2 metres tall.
But is it more beneficial? Because he's basically behind 2 legs as opposed to anybody, isn't he? You see what I mean? He's not.
To be fair, I think looking at the image on screen now, Welshide's bars look about the same height as Waiton's. It's a huge saddle to bar drop he's rocking.
Right, with 6.5 kilometres still remaining, so in the region of 7 minutes or so of this final day of the Hammer Series, the chase. One last chance to head over to Social John Canning's to find out what your thoughts have been on the series and indeed on the way things have played out today.
Peak up, Social John Canning's, agreeing with the majority of GCN viewers.
Exactly. Most of you have said peak up, so the peak is up and it's going to stay up. So we've had them Juan Hao, I hope I got the name pronounced correctly. If both teams are side by side before the line and they punctured, I presume it means all of the teams, who would win in a cleat running race? Please let us know in the comments below because I'm frankly quite interested in that. Well, I do know that actually Victor Campenaerts is a member of a running club in Holland.
Really?
Or in Belgium, sorry. I do apologise. Yes, so...
Is that where he met Carleen?
Possibly. Wouldn't like to say. However, yeah, we'd like to know what would happen.
What a shot that is on the screen right now. Team Sky just tantalisingly in front of Team Sunweb. I think it would have to be more than punctures for them to get off and run, wouldn't it? Because we can see that on tubular tyres, the riders are able to carry on, albeit at a much less comfortable pace than they would be with the air still in their tyres. But yeah, I guess we could. It's very unlikely that's going to happen though, so I'll leave that speculation for another time. The catch, will it be made out of this corner? They've got this right-hander to deal with now. And they can almost reach out and touch Team Sky, can't they, the German squad? The motivation amongst these 5 riders is going to be huge right now. They know that Team Sky are down to 4. They know that Team Sky cannot afford to lose any more riders between now and the finish line, which is in just 4.8 kilometres time. Let's not forget that this stage was 44.7 kilometres in length, 14.9 kilometres per lap, and with just 4.7 remaining, so 10% of today's stage, the catch is imminent, isn't it?
You were definitely right about Zico Waiton's not getting much shelter behind Max Welshide's 2 legs, because he was putting out 344 watts there, 4th in line, so they must be flying along.
Well, Team Sky, they must now sense that they've got these 5 riders from Team Sunweb breathing down their necks now. We aren't exactly sure, I haven't looked at the app for a few moments lastly, what the gap is between Team Sky and the peloton here behind. I wonder what these riders are thinking about it. 35 there is Lewis Vervaeke. He's decided to just sit up.
He's finally dropped off the Nippo Vini Fantini team.
Yeah, roll in for the last 4 kilometres or so of the race. Even they can see these 2 teams in front of them now.
So good.
Well, have they timed this deliberately perfectly, or is this just by chance that we've got one of the most exciting finishes that you could imagine at the end of this first inaugural 3-day series? Team Sunweb now just about to catch Team Sky. What will they do once they get up there? Are they going to try and go immediately past? Will they go against the UCI rules as some of the teams behind have been doing and stay in the slipstream for a few moments? I think you're right, Lastly. They're going to go immediately past Team Sky. How much have those riders in the black on the right hand side of your screen got left in the tank? That is going to be demoralising to be overtaken with 3.5 Ks still to go. And we understand,
51 seconds.
Yeah, 51 seconds only between these 2 teams and the group of teams behind. However, it is between these 2 teams now for the win. They're not going to close that 51 seconds in the space of 3.3 kilometres. And Theo Gegenhardt nodding his head to the right, saying, let's get in behind these guys. That's what they've been doing behind.
This is fascinating to watch. And, you know, sprint finishes and the tactics there, I find absolutely just engrossing to watch. But this stuff going on for so long, you know, this has been protractedly fascinating for almost the entire race.
Yeah, well, I think the way that things pan out today is going to severely affect how teams play things in future versions of the Hammer series. Let's have a listen to Surveys Carnarvon. Oh, it's finished already. Sorry, we can't hear Carnarvon back here in the studio, so we forget to leave him to voice his opinions out there for you. Apologies for that. But I'm wondering whether if Team Sky can stay with Sunweb and slipstream ever so slightly, whether they will have more energy left for the sprint. But at the moment that gap is increasing, not by much, but it's significant, Lars, isn't it?
It's
those comments are coming in. People are saying, are Team Sky just going to ease off a little bit and then try and attack them? Well, that's what I would do, but that's me.
Yeah, it's very easy, isn't it, as ever, to look down on our TV screens and decide what we'd be doing. Let's not forget that Team Sky have been going all out to go as fast as they possibly can for the last 46, 47 minutes of racing. It's not that they've been trying to hold some in reserve in order to sprint at the end. So they're all at their limits. All of these riders are absolutely flat out at the moment. It's going to be very unlikely that any of them can increase their speed coming in towards the line. The only reason they would be able to do that is if they get some kind of advantage from slipstreaming behind the team in front, and that looks like it could well be a factor in the outcome of today.
It does. We're actually getting, these are very kind suggestions, but they are quite scary. GCN, you should take part in the Hammer series next year.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
It would need to be a reverse handicap on the final day's chase for us to stand any chance.
Times 10.
Yeah. Well, 1.4 Ks to go. Any more comments, lastly, before we get into the sprint finish?
Thomas Martin, I really like your suggestion of a national Hammer series. It would be epic. I agree with that.
National teams?
Yeah, I think certain races in national teams every so often would be cool. Even the Tour de France, for example.
Wow, look at the grimace on this rider's face from Team Sunweb.
Sinkeldam, I'm not surprised he's grimacing with those cuts on his elbows.
Yeah, well, he's the rider that's in the rider with the camera on his. He's pulled off from the rider, so they are down to 4 as well. So they have used one of their riders, Raymond Sinkeldam, with all the bandages on, number 94 there.
He's losing bike.
It looks like Team Sunweb aren't going to have to sprint lastly. Just 800 metres to go. Oh, look at Theo Gegenhardt having to sprint to get back onto the back of his Team Sky teamers, but they are closing the gap. There's going to be some corners coming up very soon. That gap is closing, lastly. We're going to have a sprint finish.
Oh, we are. They're going to bomb them into the last corner.
Oh, look at the speed that they're coming past them.
Oh, no!
Wow. So 2 teams coming into the final corners, and Team Sunweb have been split up. Let's not forget, it is the 4th rider across the line who stops the clock.
It's a tight
the best placed
all they have to do
rider.
all they have to do is beat the 4th rider.
Wow. Oh my goodness, so both teams left with just 4 riders, and let's keep an eye on who the 4th rider is from each team. It could not be any closer.
Keep the comments coming, who's going to win?
As we come up towards the finish line now, we've got Sunweb riders at the back. I don't think they've got enough left in the tank to come back at Team Sky. What have we got? 300 metres still to go. If those 3 Sunweb riders can overtake Theo Gegenhardt, who is the last rider for Team Sky,
doing a very good job of taking
they
them out the
are
back.
going to win, and they're slipstreaming him at the moment. If they can all 3 of them go past Theo, they're going to win the Hammer series.
They're going to.
I don't know if they've got enough left to do it. How long have we got to go? 200 metres still left. No, 75 metres still to go. Team Sky are going to win the inaugural Hammer series because Sunweb were unable to come past the Young Briton. They are absolutely at their limits. What a race we had on our hands there today, and you can see how much that means to Team Sky. They earned that victory today, lastly, didn't they?
They did. I think Theo Gegenhardt struggling slightly actually played to their advantage because they took Sunweb so far out the back going into the last 200 metres. That was amazing.
I cannot wait to hear the comments in the interview.
It's the peloton. It's the peloton.
Predictions for the bunch sprint.
I just don't know, John. I just don't know.
Well, it's the 4th rider across the line, let's not forget as well. So it looks like Orica Scott, I would say, best of the rest in 3rd position.
That must have been the most technical team time trial these guys have ever ridden in, that many on aero bars.
Well, there's confirmation of the standings. 8th
for
Nippo Vinny Fantini. Well done to them for their performance over the 2 days. Look at the delight on the face of Owain Doull, an Olympic champion back in Rio last year in the team pursuit.
Doull's hardly breathing, he looks alright.
Well, it's amazing how quickly
looks like he's had a hard weekend, hasn't he? Probably the hardest weekend of anyone.
Amazing how quickly these professional riders do recover after an all-out effort for over 50 minutes. But what a finish we had! I mean, This is a brand new format, Lasty. It's very much different to what we normally see. The road stages, where they all start together, are much shorter, just 2 hours in length, and then a team chase there at the finish. And that, I have to say, was very exciting.
That was very, very exciting. Oh, look, shaking hands, that's good. That's good. No hard feelings at the end there.
What would you have done differently as Sunweb coming into the finish there? When they go back and analyse the last couple of kilometres, what do you think the sports directors will be saying to the riders if they are in that situation?
Going into the last kilometre, they just needed to have fanned across the road. It was going into the second last corner or whatever it was that Sky got through underneath the inside. If they'd held the line, there was no way that Gegenhardt was able to get around them on the back of his team, and had they taken up enough of the road that the team couldn't have got round them, I think they would have held on.
Well, at that point, it almost becomes a bit like the... What's that race on the track called? Excuse me, I'm not very good with the... Then we'll take the hindmost, is it? Is that where the last rider is?
Here we go, we've got a replay,
It almost became like that, didn't it? You just didn't want to be the last rider.
Here's the replay. Look at the gap he takes. He takes a tiny gap. Sunweb are quite passive about it when they have to be going into this corner, so they ease off, and then Sky go hard through the corner. Got a slow-mo here. Gegenhardt holds it through the corner, and then out of the corner, he just drops back a little, taking the Sunweb guys backwards.
I'm not sure that was deliberate.
No, I'm not suggesting it was deliberate, but
yeah.
You know, he'd put in such a huge effort across the whole weekend.
Well, here you can see, at this point in time, I'm starting to think, well, if they've got anything left in their legs team somewhere, if they just stay on the wheel of Theo Gegenhardt and go round him at the last possible moment. I'm also going to be interested in the jury reports after this, because the rules do state, Lasty, that no slipstreaming is allowed between the teams once they catch each other. It was nigh on impossibility not to slipstream given the narrow nature of some of the roads out on the course. And you know what you're going to do, that is your instinct as a cyclist, isn't it? That when you're around other riders, you sit behind them, and it's very difficult to tell them to stay to one side once they've been caught. And well, it did produce some very exciting racing, there's no doubt about that.
I loved watching it. I can't imagine that anyone didn't love watching it, so I think the results stand. Our friend Kaylee Fretz, famous for Tech with Fretz, Dubai Tour every year with you, Dan, has tweeted, "That was awesome, #Hammer Series." It was awesome.
Yeah, as I said, I can't wait to hear the reaction of the riders as they are interviewed, presumably in just a few moments' time, and indeed the reaction to the race on social media. Don't forget, you can let us know your thoughts on the race that you've been watching over the last 3 days live on GCN on both YouTube and Facebook. You can leave your comments below the videos on both of those formats, or indeed, he's even some barging there, wasn't there, from Theo on the run in towards the finish line there, as he tried to make sure.
Well, maybe there will be some jury stuff if that barging stuff gets brought up.
Well, the jury did have to change the finish order yesterday, didn't they, after Raymond Sinkeldam. Or is that Sinkeldam there, number 93? I thought he was no, that's Kamner. He must have also come a cropper over the first couple of days of the race.
What did they do with Yuri Filosi, who kind of got engaged in some contact?
I don't think anything happened to
him. So maybe nothing will happen here as a precedent for it.
Well, maybe the precedent is it's kind of no holds barred. You know, there are rules written down, but we're not going to...
When the hammer's down, who knows what's going to happen?
Not going to stringently adhere to those rules necessarily.
It's just impossible.
Wait and see.
It's brilliant.
What
a race.
We are going to head over to John Cannings in a few moments' time to find out what the reaction has been from you as viewers as to the inaugural Hammer Series race. I, for one, very much enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's right. Mike Smith has commented, how about eliminating the last team across the line after the first lap, which Dan previously mentioned. I think that would really add to the spectacle of it. Maybe not each lap, but maybe there should be certain points on the lap so that you end up with less teams at the end. I don't know. You should let us know in the comments. Just everybody really interested in the new format of racing. And it's, for us, I mean, certainly we weren't really sure what was going to happen, and it's been such a strange afternoon's racing. That's all we can say, really. It would be interesting to hear what the jury do say. A lot of people are commenting on that. You know, the jury has something to chew on. They all get disqualified for drafting the TT. Well, then we don't really have a winner. Yes, so let's wait and see what happens. But certainly the peloton behind, that was quite an interesting thing to see. Yeah.
I think just looking at the team cars now, you can see the director sportives were having to get a driver from the team as well, just so they could really get into the tactical nuances of this and help the riders out over the radio.
Possibly even more important over the first 2 days, where they're calculating points as they go. versus today's team time trial, which normally is a slightly similar affair. That's just how close it was. 1 second separating Team Sunweb as runners-up overall in the series to Team Sky, who take the inaugural victory here. Orica Scott just 36 seconds in the end back to them, and they certainly didn't sit up and hang about in the first two places. So
Orica Scott are the winners then of this individual stage, if not the overall.
We think so. I actually didn't look at the
quick
time.
Step were about 52 minutes.
Okay, so yeah, Orica
52:38 for quick step.
Let's listen to the reactions from Team Sky.
The winners of the inaugural Hammer Series. What you wanted to do. Elia Viviani in that team's time trial, the Hammer chase
to do
in front for so long, and then caught,
full
you
gas, try
stayed
to
cool,
win also
you
the
knew
stage
exactly
after.
what you wanted
We
to
know
do.
the strongest team is BNC, initially we start with the day he there to do our when team
we lose
we understand we are only for and we know the strongest team is BNC, but we try to manage and go steady for all the lap, and when we lose, we know on the radio somewhere we are only 4, and when they chase us, so we don't know what we do, but they play a little bit the game, they rest a little bit behind us, and then we say, okay, we start to come up in the space, and then we see for the sprint. We don't know what we do, but they play a little bit the game, they rest a little bit behind us, and then we say, okay, give him the space, and then we see for the sprint. We have
you're behind the 8 ball then as a non-sprinter. You did your job in the Hammer climb, scored lots of points, but today you had to pull out a sprint. Have you ever done any sprint training? You're behind the 8 ball then as a non-sprinter. You did your job in the Hammer climb, scored lots of points, but today you had to pull out a sprint. Have you ever done any sprint training? Have you ever practiced something like that? And how much pressure did you feel coming into that last 500 metres?
The last kilometre or 500 metres, the lead-outs pulled out there for us this year with unbelievable how fast he overtook them, and I was already sprinting from about 600 metres to go, so I think everyone was on the limit at the last metres, and unbelievable
Thankfully I had a bit more than
fast he
those,
overtook them, and somewhere guys, so I was already sprinting from about 600 metres to go, so I think
after 3 days of racing like this, did you expect it to come down to the wire and be so very close at the end?
Somewhere guys, so
yeah, I think with those time gaps and the length of that circuit,
after 3 days of racing like this, did you expect it to come down to the wire and be so very close at the end?
Yeah, I think with those time gaps and the danger going off first, because you're always going to be close, and I think the chase, so you kind of 32 seconds planned out to be on your own perfect amount for this distance. Once we heard they were coming at us, I think it was always kind of the danger going off first, you got no kind of try and come back past the chase, so you kind of in.
Danny Van Poppel, you had the advice from Sylvester Carnarvon to let Team Sunweb take the lead and then try and hit over them, own that last corner, and that was your job. Danny Van Poppel, you had the advice from Sylvester Carnarvon to let Team Sunweb take the lead and then try and hit over them, own that last corner, and that was your job.
I had to bring them to the last corner, and big fight. That was really close, but
so quite often racing is riding for one individual from the team, but now you get to win as a team, everybody on the podium. How enjoyable is that?
Yeah, for sure, it's good.
So quite often racing is riding for one individual from the team, but now you get to win as a team, everybody on the podium. How enjoyable is that? Congratulations to Team Sky, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty of champagne sprayed on the podium when the official presentation happens. Well done again, guys. Enjoy. Congratulations to Team Sky, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty of champagne sprayed on the podium when the official presentation happens. Well done again, guys. Enjoy.
Well, and obviously elated Team Sky, who have run out victors on the Hammer Series, courtesy of their chase performance on day 3 in Limburg. And what a performance it was lastly. We heard the reactions from all of the riders there, and a lot of team tactics going on in the closing part of the race, which we're going to look back on fairly shortly. This is a recap of the entire day's racing for the second group on the road, the last 8 teams, should I say, out there on the road. There was a point where we wondered whether the loss of John Dibben could be quite crucial to the end result of Team Sky.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't in the end, Dan. They put in such a strong performance. We need to apologise for, I believe there were a couple of sound issues during the Team Sky interview. You might have had some muddled audio. You may have just been able to make out what they were saying, but what it is unfortunately what we're receiving. It's not what we're putting out there. But yeah, Dibben perhaps paced it perfectly then. Sacrificial.
Yeah, well, we'll wait and see all of the reactions from all of the teams, but who could have imagined at the start of this 3-day series that all 8 pretty much of the first teams overall would be separated by around about 40 seconds. That really is something quite incredible, and did make a team time trial a lot more interesting.
It certainly did. Just the response across Twitter, social media, and in the comments has just been incredible. That was Bless you, Dan. That was certainly the most interesting team time trial I've ever watched, and one of the more interesting, if more confusing, sprint finishes I've ever seen.
Yeah, because of course not the first rider across the line. We're used to seeing sprint finishes, of course, all the time in the world of professional cycling. But the fact that it was the fourth team across the line, it meant that it was a few moments before Team Sky's first three riders, Untitled, also Elia Viviani and Danny Van Poppel, looked round and saw where Theo was, a non-sprinter of course, so they wouldn't have been certain as to exactly where he was behind them. Once they looked round and they saw that Team Sunweb had only got riders behind Theo, they must have then realised that they'd won. And the elation was obvious, wasn't it? It might be a race which has no history, it's a brand new race, but you could see how much that meant to them, couldn't you?
That did, that was, yeah, it was... That was a great day of racing to watch, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
It really was. It was fascinating. It was different. It was new. It was everything.
Right. Well, we will wrap up our broadcast in the next few minutes. But before we do, we'll get a final reaction from you lot as a summary from Mr. Social himself, John Cannings.
I think really Tim Williams summed this up on YouTube. He replied, "What's not to like? Short, crazy, no adverts, and GCN banter." I mean, what an afternoon.
Yeah, well, of course, apart from Zwift online virtual racing, this is the first time that we at the Global Cycling Network have been fortunate enough to stream a race live. We have as much as anyone to learn when it comes to that, so any of your suggestions moving forward would be very much appreciated. You can either leave them below the video, but probably better for us would be that you give us your feedback as a message either on Instagram, or on Facebook, or as a tweet, which you can find us at GCN Tweet. So if you give us any feedback, that would be very much appreciated, and we shall take it on board before the next live streaming of an event.
Definitely, and if you have enjoyed these live streams, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button on the videos and share them as well, because I think today was a great day of racing that personally I could watch again and again.
Yeah, well, the fact that it is only 3 days long does keep everybody fascinated really from start to finish. None of us knew what to expect. I don't think any of the teams or riders or sports directors...
Evidently not. You know, shot on screen now of the the Sky undertaking.
None of them knew what to expect either. It will be fascinating to find out and see what the teams have learned from these first 3 days of the Hammer Series, which they will then take into their tactics and their team selection moving into the second event, which will be coming at some point next year. As we said earlier on in our broadcast, at the moment it's just Limburg and the Tour de Fjord up in Norway which have confirmed themselves as Hammer Series races for 2018, but we understand that they are very close to having 1 or 2 more rounds in the series as well. So the teams will be very much learning. I loved the shoulder bars there from Theo Gegenhardt. Didn't take his arms off the bars, probably didn't want to on a time trial bike.
That would be interesting.
But for a non-sprinter, that was impressive.
Yeah, yeah. Good stuff. Good to see everyone getting stuck in.
Right then, one more comment from John Cannings over in the corner, statistician and social media expert.
Statistician.
Before we wrap up our broadcast for today.
Okay, we've got Orica Scott, who I actually tipped today to win the stage. I don't know, did they or did they not?
I think they probably did.
We think they probably did have the fastest time. Yeah.
Or was it Lotto and El Jumbo? Because they started 14 seconds behind Orica Scott on the road, and they were probably in the peloton.
And El Jumbo.
Yeah, wow, it's all down to the peloton. But Orica Scott tweeted, "Great fight back by the team. We take 3rd overall in the inaugural edition, and a lot of pride from our performance today."
Yeah,
so I think, you know, the teams have really enjoyed it, and it's also interesting that really a team can't control the race in this format of racing. So it's something which is really brought some spectacular action to the screen.
Yeah, certainly in my mind there's very much room for a different format as we've seen here at the Hammer Series, because, you know, of course when you've got 9-man teams, lots of people have been speculating that should be reduced to 8 or 7-man teams, because with 9 riders in a squad, it does make it reasonably, I'm not going to say easy to control things at something like the Tour de France, because it's always incredibly difficult, but it's certainly a lot harder, a lot easier to control things than if you had 6 or 7-man teams. And I think the Tour of Britain to some extent has been quite an example really of the exciting racing you can get when it is much harder to control the race, because the Tour of Britain, since it was reincarnated in effect a few years ago, has always had 6-man teams, and we've often seen the race leadership chop and change on multiple days in succession over the course of the 8 days there. So this might well provide food for thought for some of the other race organisers moving forward as well.
How do you reckon this format would translate? So this pursuit, this chase format would translate into an individual time trial for the final stage of a race. I think that could be very cool.
That you start the individual time trial based on the time gaps that they've got to that point.
Yeah, and the first one across the line wins.
Yeah, well that could have worked, couldn't it? On the Giro d'Italia in particular.
On a hill climb or something like that.
Oh, that would you're right there, Lassie. If the Giro d'Italia that finished exactly 1 week ago, if they'd have set out Nairo Quintana first, followed closely by Vincenzo Nibali, then Thibaut Pinot, and then the best time trialist out of them all, Tom Dumoulin, setting out 51 seconds after the pink jersey. That would have been far more fascinating to see on the road, because rather than relying on graphics and time splits and trying to work things out, as we see Team Sky coming up the steps to the podium, we'd have been able to see out there on the road who was in first position, who was leading the Giro d'Italia.
Yeah, and the first across the line is the winner. They do it. They do it in other sports like skiing, and
of course, it would be fascinating. We would then have the Miller-Peak effect behind, wouldn't we? As all the other riders join together.
Yeah, it could have made for a long stage though, because if my memory is correct, Fonzi, who was the Maglianera, the black jersey, or the last rider overall in the classification, he would have been starting in the region of 4.5 hours behind Nairo Quintana, so it could have made for a long day in the saddle, and the excitement might have waned after the first few riders crossed the line.
Maybe
but nevertheless,
have to do what the Hammer Series have done and kind of cut the riders up into sections.
Yeah.
Not cut the riders up, but cut the bunch up into sections.
Well, I mean, cycling's been the same for so long. Let's not rip up the rules and start again. Maybe only the first 20 riders in the GC get to do the final day's time trial at the Giro d'Italia.
I'm sure that Fonzie would probably be quite grateful for that.
I'm talking rubbish, but it does go to show you that some different formats and some different ideas thrown into the very historical sport of cycling can very much make it a little bit more exciting on occasion.
Also, Alex Dowsett, of course, a former world hour record holder.
GCN advisor.
GCN advisor to the triplets hour record. He's also tweeted, just as things were getting mad for third place, I decided to have a lie down. Didn't take anyone else with me.
Oh no.
I'm okay. So while he was preparing for the bunch sprint, in effect. Yeah.
Oh, champagne and glitter flying.
Alright then, well I think this is probably a good time to wrap things up for us here at GCN as Team Sky celebrate their victory that's been well earned over the last 3 days, crossing the line first on the final day chase in Limburg this Sunday. What an incredible effort by the young riders from Team Sky. They will be celebrating now, and of course I'm sure they'll be celebrating tonight as well. We will bid you a fond farewell. Thank you very much to everyone who's joined us on Facebook or on YouTube Live for the last 3 days, or just today. We very much enjoyed bringing it to you. We very much enjoyed commentating as well, and thanks for all your comments and suggestions. We shall take them on board and hope to see you at a similar event very soon indeed. From myself, Tom Last, and John Cannings, bye for now.
Thanks guys.